is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Jeremy Lee in the building and every guest that you ever needed. Sports cards after hours keep the hobby heated. Updates, hobby talk like you never seen it. Sports cards live and none could ever beat it. Sports cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Welcome to another episode of Sports Cards Live with your host, Jeremy Lee.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 253 of Sports Cards Live. It is Saturday night, January the 11th, 2025. My name is Jeremy Lee. Guys, a quick reminder, tomorrow night on the channel, Fanatics live hockey show with Josh Madigan from The Gong Show. Tomorrow night at 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern. Guys, couple of sponsor partner shout-outs. Filth Bomb Breaks offers live case and box breaks. If you are looking for a breaker to break with, look no further than Filth Bomb, streaming 7 days a week on 4 channels on Fanatics Live. And if you are looking to add a grail to your collection, guys, fund your cards at fundyourcards.com, the hobby's leading consolidator, with our brand new cutting edge client platform portal. Check out fundyourcards.com. You can fund your grail with your own cards. Mint Inc., leading hobby brand in Canada. Great shops in the Toronto area, the GTA, online, worldwide shipping. Check out mintinc.ca. Hobby News Daily. Check out hobbynewsdaily.com, guys, for some regular daily news headlines. A podcast, Leighton Sheldon, Just Collect, will be joining us a little bit later tonight. This show is available on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcast. Please check it out. Leave a rating or review. Subscribe. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please take a moment and do so. And I want to thank everybody for your loyal viewership, your listenership. I'm truly grateful. This is the 5th year. We're into year 5 here, guys. And I got to say, it's been a while since we've done a live stream, but we're going to bring on Joe first and talk about that. Your questions, your comments will be in play tonight as best as we can. Let's bring out my co-host, Joe Poirot from Santa Cruz. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks, Jay Lee. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to the Sports Cards Live audience out there.
Yeah, well, same to you. Happy New Year, guys. I have to say, it's pretty crazy. I think, and I apologize, but I think this is the longest I've taken off of content in just under 5 years. And I got to say, it's been nice, but I am back. I am recharged. I'm ready for 2025. So thank you, guys. I was traveling, took a vacation, but we are back into the routine. And I miss being here. I miss being with all you guys in the chat. I see you all there already. Good to see you guys. Good to be here with Joe. We got some great guests joining us tonight. We got some topics, but before we do that, again, a happy New Year to everybody. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention what is going on in Los Angeles. I know we've got fellow hobby friends down there who are affected by the fires. I know people who have been displaced from their homes, and just want to say, stay safe out there, LA. Everybody's thinking about you. We are thinking about you. The Sports Cards Live community is thinking about you, supporting you, and just hoping for the best for everybody. Joe, you're closer than I am. You are in California. Anything you'd like to say about what's going on in Los Angeles?
Yeah, just sending out positive energy to everybody affected, the humans, the animals, all aspects, and giving thanks to all the emergency response teams that are out there working hard to help save lives and properties and terrain. So yeah, it's a serious time, and here we are talking about sports cards tonight, but definitely in my thoughts, the Los Angeles area.
And, you say, here we are talking about sports cards. And if anybody in LA who is affected is watching us or listening, hopefully this can provide you, or just your hobbies, whatever content can provide you with some distractions from what is going on. I know it's certainly a tough time, no doubt about it. But we are here. We are back here on Sports Cards Live tonight. And, I also want to mention last night, Leighton Sheldon and I recorded episode 8 of the Vintage Spotlight podcast. That will drop tomorrow or the next day, tomorrow or Monday. I'm not yet sure, but it is done. I have a little bit of editing to do, and then I'm going to push it out on the Vintage Spotlight YouTube channel and podcast again on Spotify and Apple. So guys, check that out. We had Sammy Thunder as our guest, and check out his YouTube channel, of course. But we had a nice 1 hour long episode recorded last night that will be pushed out here in the next day or two. All right, Joe, let's say hello to the chat. Let's say hello to everybody. And of course, I'm just glad to be back here behind the camera with everybody. The Professor, good evening to you. Oh, and by the way, if you're watching on Instagram, guys, feel free to come to YouTube. Come on over to YouTube, where it is a much better viewing experience, and I'll be able to see your comments in a much more timely manner. I might miss them all together on Instagram. Good evening, Professor Jacob Dahl. Good to see you. Happy New Year, everybody. Jason Pringle, good to see you, buddy. It was good to see you today in person at the Calgary Acadia show. Robert Scott, welcome. Good to see you. Studio Sports, thank you very much. Lantern is here. Jeff McMahon, happy to be back. Josh Jerez, welcome to the show. Happy New Year. Chris from CRT Sports Cards. We're going to get him on one of these shows soon. Dan, good to see you. Happy New Year. Thank you for joining. Irving Manera is in LA. Irving, I hope you are okay down in LA. Appreciate that, Josh. Appreciate that. Hey, look at that. We got Eric Myers, Howley Hustle in the house. What's going on, Eric? Good to see you. Triple V, howdy to you. Yelia Williams, what's going on? Best meal from my travels. Oh my gosh, I got to tell you, they shouldn't. I don't know why we call it going on vacation. It should be called going grocery shopping in a different city, because that's literally what I do. You go in, you get yourself an Airbnb, and you're at the grocery store every single day. But we had a great time nonetheless. Perchy, what's happening? I appreciate the call out for the like button. Professor has friends in LA who have evacuated to Santa Cruz because of the poor air quality in LA. No doubt. I can't imagine the air there right now. Perchy wishes everyone in LA best wishes. Dan's I got a nephew. Godson and his family are safe, but their home was destroyed. Hearts go out to your family, Dan. Terrible, terrible. Yitz, what's going on? Welcome. Your nephew is largely responsible. Oh, well, hey, good to hear that. Triple V, yes, no doubt, no doubt. Michael Stone, good to see you, buddy. Brett Miles, good evening. Great to see you in person as well today. Brett always is. Todd McDonald, good evening. Irving says we are safe over here, only ashes and bad air quality on your side. Well, put on a mask, whatever you got to do, man. Take care of your health for sure. For sure. All right, Joe. Before we bring on our first guest of the evening, who is Suze, Yanks chick. Suze, we're going to bring you on in just a couple minutes. I went to an LCS in Phoenix while I was down there. DNA Cards. Didn't know much about it, but the owner wasn't there. But I saw him. I saw what he looked like on Instagram, and he looked familiar to me. His name is Adam. But I went in there, spent about an hour. Beautiful store. I love the floor, the brushed concrete, tons of showcases filled with singles, and I just wanted to buy something. So, and they were very helpful. I ended up picking up 4 cards there, guys, and I'm just going to share them with you. Nothing crazy. I didn't even negotiate on the first 3. I did on the last one, but I picked myself up a 66 Topps Brooks Robinson. Nice mid-grade PSA 5, beautifully centered card. I thought it was nice. Picked myself up a 1960 Topps Slam Usual PSA 2.5. You know, it's got some wrinkles down the corner. You can barely see them, but like from here, doesn't that look like a mint condition card?
Looks great.
Yeah. Nice card.
Not easy to find those 60s centered either.
Yeah, it's really nicely centered. And then my favorite one, and I mean, this card was not on my radar at all. Not at all. But it was in a showcase. It was $30. 1972 Topps Fergie Jenkins, guys. It's a PSA 6. It's off center top to bottom a bit, but I just think that I love the marquee across the top. I love the 2 stars in the corners there. I think right there, those 2 stars, I think they're just a cool accent to the card. I love the pinkish color, and I like how Fergie is kind of coming in from the left-hand side. It's most likely spring training. It looks like a palm tree in the background there. Right. This card has grown on me so much, and I don't know what year it is for Fergie. Like, is it a 60-year card? I have no idea, really. But just a beautiful card for cheap that I really enjoy.
Yeah, it might be my favorite 70s set, the 72 issue, just with the colors and the kind of 70s vibe going on with the font up above, and I mean, what is that? Purple, burgundy? I don't even know the color scheme.
Like pinkish maroon or something. 72. It's also my birth year. If anyone wants to go do that math, it's also my birth year, which is kind of cool. I do have a Carlton Fisk rookie from the same set, but this is my only like single player card from 72. And I'm just really happy. Like these 3 cards didn't cost me much. And then I bought I only bought it because, the hype. This card I bought because of the hype. I admit it. I don't know if this player is going to turn into anything, but his name sure stands for a lot. It's a 2003 Topps Chrome Bronny James McDonald's gold refractor, numbered out of 50 on the back. And I'll tell you, I got all 4 cards for $200. All 4. Like, I don't know. I didn't think I could go wrong with that. And I'm enjoying them. And cards like this, guys, I really like them, and we'll see. Am I going to keep them all forever? I don't know. I'm not like forcing myself to. The Fergie, probably. The other 2, I really like them, but we'll see. I'm going to enjoy them, and if I decide one day to pass them on, they're really well centered, and I'm sure I will be able to find someone who would really appreciate them down the road. But for now, I'm going to keep them. They're not coming to my card. I'm setting up a show again tomorrow. They're not coming in my showcase. They're my cards for now, but we'll see. We'll see how I go with them as time goes by. Farm League Sports Cards, welcome to the show. Fergie is Canadian. He used to be at the Expo all the time. He had some foundation that was always set up at the Sport Card Expo studio. They had a small section of hockey in this store. Nothing for me, unfortunately, but a very small section on one shelf of one showcase. Jake Dahl says Fergie was the first ever Canadian Baseball Hall of Famer. Right on. Hello, Mark Santucci and Michael Stone. Always people willing to buy mid-grade vintage. I mean, I loved it. I loved that the vintage was mixed in with the modern on their shelves. They had a beautiful 52 Bowman Mickey Mantle, among other great cards. And I picked up what I picked up. Good afternoon, Dan the Card Man. What's going on, Dan? Good to see you. We'll get you back on the show very soon. All right, guys, let's bring on Suze. Are you ready to come on, Suze? There she is, Suze at Yanks Chick. It is a pleasure to have you back on the show, although you are in the opening intro video, so you're on all the shows. How are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Do you know Joe?
I don't think we've officially met before.
Hi, Suze. Nice to meet you.
It is, yes, Robert Scott. That was the store with the Maravich. It was the store with the Maravich. Well, Suze, it's good to have you on. Sports Cards Live 2.0, your first time on this format of the show, and I'm glad to have you back. It's been a while since you were on with me. Do you remember when that was even?
I mean, it was within the last 3 to 4 years, because I know I was living in this place when we were on, but I don't remember exactly when, but it definitely was probably like more than 2 years ago.
Yeah, I feel like it was at least 2 years ago. I think I've had the current intro video for at least 2 years, so probably in that 3.5 year range, but it's good to have you back. And what I like to do now on this show is ask people when you're coming on to come with something that is interesting to you. And, you had mentioned to me that it's like the 2-year anniversary since Fanatics acquired Topps?
It was 3 years. I did my math wrong that day when I was because I had looked at it. So it was January 6th, I think it was the date, and it was 2022. And when I was looking at it, it was 2024 technically. As I was looking at it in December, I was like, oh, that's 2 years, not accounting, for the new year happening. So it was 3 years.
So it's 3 years now. And what does that mean to you? And I know you do your card chat. So guys, if you're on Twitter, now X, and you are not following Suze at Yanks Chick on Twitter, you probably are, but if you're not, you should be. Every Wednesday you do this thing you call card chat, where you pose, 6 to 10 questions to your followers and you engage in conversations. And I believe on this past Wednesday, you were kind of focusing it around Fanatics owning Topps, and 3 years have gone by now. Did you gain any insights from those conversations? What is important about that to you? What can you share with us about that?
It's interesting because I think a lot of longtime hobbyists have a sort of more negative view of what the last 3 years have changed, where people who are newer to the space, and not even within the last 3 years, but maybe within the last 5 years or so, have a much more overall positive feeling about it. It's, you know, the long time, and for people in general, change is tough. Change is really hard. And so it's like when things change, sometimes it's tough to adjust, and, you know, things are different, some for better, some for worse. And that's what I really took away. I think it really depends on sort of when you got into the space and how you collect is really what your overall feeling on it is.
And you used to work at Topps, so you have some insights that many people right now. Where are you working right now?
I work at CGC.
So CGC, the grading company, the card grading company, the comic book grading company, I believe. Are you involved in all operations or just sports cards? What is your role at CGC?
So I'm the marketing manager at CGC Cards, for just cards. So like, while, you know, I work closely with the other sort of divisions, my main focus is cards. I'm actually wearing my Collect What You Love. It's like one of my favorite hoodies, CGC Collect What You Love hoodie, because it encompasses pretty much how I feel about the space, whether, you know, depending on who is the, you know, it's Topps, Fanatics, Panini, whomever may be, you know, the big dog at the time. Collect what you love. And you know what? And that, for me, like, at the end of the day, we're talking about like how other people feel. At the end of the day, for me, it doesn't matter, like I said, who the top dog is. You just collect what you love and like do it how you love. And I've had to change my collection. Have not changed, because I'm always going to collect Derek Jeter cards, but I've had to change how I collect. And it hasn't really bothered me, because at the end of the day, like, I'm able to just look at my collection and just enjoy what I have.
Yeah, if there's any, I was looking through for some reason some archives on my Instagram story, and I saw this one I put up, I don't know, in the last 8 months or so. Basically said, you know, if the corporate aspect of the hobby has you down for any reason, just go to your cards, enjoy your cards. Don't worry about all that extraneous BS that can be going on, the drama, the companies, who's doing what. You know, we can, I think I made the comment, if you are letting the companies in the space dictate your level of happiness in the hobby, stop, because you're kind of doing it wrong. If that's the case, you're giving them too much power over your hobby enjoyment. Now, you've worked for several companies in this space. And but let's go back to the original discussion in terms of, you know, you worked at Topps. Now they are owned by Fanatics. And something that I don't know much about, but I've heard, is that they've recently decided, in their newest flagship, they eliminated a black parallel or something. What's the story with that, Susan? How big of a deal is that?
Well, I don't, like, we still need, I guess, confirmation on that. I'll say that, like, in the list that they did post on their website, we're like, here are the parallels, and there was a bunch of different parallels. And black has been a very popular parallel for a number of years, and it was numbered to, I want to say, 76. But it hasn't always been around, and I feel like I'm kind of sounding like a Fanatics apologist. I don't want to come across that way, but it's just it's like, I guess from working at companies, I kind of also see a different perspective of it. The black, I love the black parallel. So I'm hoping, like, maybe that was just like inadvertent, that maybe they left that off the list, because it has been in the product for a long time. But there are other parallels that have been around for quite some time, like the Mother's Day pink and the Father's Day blue, that were also not on that list, that I know a number of collectors were disappointed seeing that gone. And there was actually somebody, I think, made a comment. They were like, oh, Topps is forgetting about tradition. But I was actually working at Topps when that pink and that blue, specifically called like Father's Day blue and Mother's Day pink, were started to be included into the sets, because they were looking at like synergistic ways to be a part of Major League Baseball. Like, what are Major League Baseball's big holidays? And they have the Mother's Day gloves that they celebrate. They have the pink for like breast cancer awareness, and then they have the blue for prostate cancer awareness. So they specifically made those parallel colors to support MLB with that. So things, and this goes back to like, things change, things evolve. So here, when they added those parallels, that's why they did it. So maybe they're gone now, but I want to say it was like 2015 they had added those parallels. So it's been about 9-10 years. So they're trying to mix it up. Black was a lot longer than that. So I could understand why there are a number of collectors who are upset about that, because it was one of like the more popular parallels. It's been around for a lot longer than that. And it's like, if it's numbered to 76, like, it's pretty low numbered parallel to get. So if you're collecting rookie cards, which, that's what everybody loves to collect, the base cards, when it comes to value, pretty worthless, because there's just like a million of them made per card. But to collect the black number to 76. Like that is a pretty valuable parallel for like a pretty good rookie. And also because it's been around for so long, it gives continuity to your set if you're trying to collect like those specific rookies every single year. So for the black parallel, I certainly understand why collectors would be upset about that. But I do think that things change, it's like things are going to adjust. I think they're trying to find new ways to sort of like spice things up. People complain there was too many parallels, and I'm like one of those people. I'm like, I wanted to complete a rainbow last year from Flagship. There was something like 35 parallels across like all the different SKUs. That's a lot of parallels. That's not prism level parallels, but that's a lot of parallels. And so now they remove some, and maybe they remove the wrong ones. I don't know, but it's like, I think trying to find a balance, it's like one of those, you're never going to make everybody happy.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's a tough situation because so Brett Miles says here, collect what you love. Simple as that, saying what you said, Suze. But if what you love is discontinued, it can make it very difficult. Farm League, same thing. They really messed me up dropping Mother's Day and Father's Day. I collect them, but then we say, well, change happens. Maybe we have to, as collectors, understand that, not everything we collect is going to be there forever. We've seen it I know from some friends that collect certain hockey sets, certain subsets from the Cup even have changed or been discontinued. And people just really don't like it. And they lash out, because that's what we do. We take it personally when something we love is no longer available to us, right? I want to get Joe to pipe in on this because Joe, listen, I don't think you're out there collecting a certain parallel, but do you feel for collectors who might have been doing a certain parallel every year? And if it's discontinued, do you think that they have like a case against the card companies?
You got to stay nimble in this world and in collecting too. I think, I can understand some disappointment, but you pivot and, you adjust and sometimes it comes back, and it essentially is the history of the whole, history of cardboard, the history of sports cards and alternative, cards and antiques. Things change and they go through, different iterations and different emphases. So, but if I could ask Suze a quick question, Suze, if you were going to toot your horn real quick on your role right now as a marketing person, and like what strategies are you or initiatives are you working with? Because I've heard a lot of positive buzz about CGC and not just the clear transparent slabs, but the graders, the experience of the grading team. And I think they made a great switch going from the prescription green to the more sort of cutting edge stylistic slab that they've gone. But can you tell us just a little bit, maybe like macro level stuff that you are working with in terms of ideas with your team?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many exciting things coming out. And one of the things I'm focusing coming out, and like the campaign will kind of start in the next couple of days / weeks, is the Pristine 10 label. So if you've seen the Pristine 10 label, it's the card that's the best of the best. So if you have you have Gem and 10 and Pristine 10, but that Pristine 10 label is very pretty. It's just it is a gorgeous label. It looks amazing. So I think one of the campaigns we're doing is just to get more people to know about the Pristine 10 label. So not every card is obviously going to get it because it's a Gem Mint 10. And it's what's the difference between a Gem Mint 10 and a Pristine 10? And that will be part of the campaign, that sort of education of it. So that's going to be something coming soon, is a Pristine 10 campaign to explain to people what that is, what it looks like, why it's valuable, because it is valuable. It does sell more than 10s across all the different grading companies. It sells more than Gem and 10s. So that's also a part of it as well.
I have a question about that, Suze, if you good, Joe? Yeah. So you mentioned the Pristine label, and then my mind goes to because BGS has their 10 Pristine and their black label. Is the CGC Pristine 10 meant to compete at all with the BGS 10 or black? Because PSA doesn't have anything higher than Gem Mint. So how is CGC trying to position that relative to, say, the BGS grades and maybe even relative to PSA 10s?
Sure. Well, when the merger happened, right, you talked about the CSG green label. Like, so when CSG and CGC merged, prior to that, we did a lot of focus groups. We talked to a lot of different people within the space and asked them, like, nothing was off the table. And one of them was the grading scale. Like, do you want to have something higher than a Gem Mint 10? And overwhelmingly, the answer was yes. So we took that feedback and was like, okay, so we'll create this pristine 10, because the feedback is, like I said, overwhelmingly yes, that they want something higher than a Gem Mint 10. I think naturally it ends up competing with the black label because those two are sort of comparable on that scale. Like you could go up to pristine. I mean, you go up to Gem Mint 10, and then in two spaces with Beckett, there's the black label, and then with CGC, there's a pristine 10. So I think naturally they end up competing against each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because you're with CGC, so you're trying to. You said you're trying to create awareness of the pristine 10 grade. I'm an investor in tag grading, and I have a bit of an idea about how hard it can be to get a big piece of that grading pie, like you see if you follow gem rate. And I mean, Michael Stone asks right here, can you give us an estimated percentage of how many cards get pristine 10s? Are you able to answer that?
It's a great question. I'll just say this. I don't know off the top of my head, but what I can say, because it's like I was doing research into this, if people are curious about this, Modern Pokemon does very well in getting pristine 10s because, like, I guess how they print them is great. And Topps Now cards. So Topps Now cards and modern Pokemon are really great at, like, potentially achieving a pristine 10 because of the printing processes of those cards.
We also have Gem Rate, which I think, to Michael Stone's question, you can probably find that information on Gem Rate, or even ask Gem Rate, DM them on Instagram and say, hey, can you publish this stat? Because it would be interesting. I feel like it's easy enough for a Gem Rate type of service to quantify that measure, right? I would think so, Suze. I want to go back into the chat here because some good comments here a bit earlier. And, Suze, let's get your thoughts on it too. Farm League Sports Card says, I no longer buy vintage because of the grade, only eye appeal. And I love that. I think that's the way to do it. He says that after I probably showed a 2.5, a 5, and a 6. And I didn't buy those because of the grade. I bought them because the eye appeal. Suze, how do you collect graded cards? Do you only collect CGC? Do you collect any vintage? I know you're a Jeter collector big time, but what about you when it comes to vintage? Do you buy for eye appeal? Do you buy raw? How do you approach it?
So, I mean, most of my collection is modern. There's I do have vintage. So I'm not gonna say I don't, but I definitely buy. And I don't, I think of when it comes to vintage cards and them being graded, it's more about, is this a card authentic? And has this card been sort of, let's say, like, tampered with? Like, has it been altered in any way? I don't care about the grade. I buy the card. Like, I'm very much in the camp of buy the card, not the grade, even though I'm like, yes, pristine 10s. But when it comes to vintage, like, I'm definitely in that camp. Like, I have, it's over there. I wish I had it in my hand, but it's like over there now. But like, I have a Gaudy Garrick in a 2.5. I don't care that it's a 2.5. Like, I care about that card, So I think that when it comes to vintage, I care if it's authentic.
Yeah.
And that's where I land on that.
That's a very important part of the whole grading process and world right there for sure. Speaking of what you do content, Dan's Vintage says Suze has a great newsletter, but we need more edition. How often do you agree with you? How often do you put them out, Suze?
Sadly, it's been monthly, like once a month. I'm able to do it because between working full-time job, being a wife and being a mom and just life in general, it gets a little tough to write them as frequently as possible. But I'm working on one and I'm hoping to publish it on Monday. So
right on. Good. And always good stuff from Suze. I've been following her blogging for feels like decades already at this point.
Decades.
True North Card Expo. Good evening to you. Michael Ham in the house. What's going on, Hambone? Good to see you, buddy. Doghouse Hockey Cards is here. Good evening. Foul Ball says, I love non-graded. Foul Ball's name is Jeremy, just like mine. And I know he doesn't want graded cards. I love that approach. Totally, there's nothing wrong. Collect how you like, collect what you like. Michael Stone says, I know many baseball guys that love the Topps black parallel. I can't believe that they would get rid of it. And like I think you said, Suze, they may not have gotten rid of it, right? Time will tell. Maybe it's an oversight, but tough to say. Michael Stone, question for Suze. I really enjoy CGC slabs. Have you guys done anything to change the return shipping policy?
I'm not entirely sure what he means by that, but I'm going to say I don't think anything has changed. But I'm not sure which part of the policy, I guess, is the question.
Well, we'll see if we can come back to that. USMNT Soccer says, been here for 5 years. Don't think I've ever seen the hobby universally accept a change. I think that is a very astute comment right there. JP says, be flexible and adapt to the hobby. That said, if you don't speak up, then what you and others liked will never come back. It's a good point there too. Suze is nodding in agreement. Irving says, we've had a ton of CGC pristine 10s in our shop for Pokemon. They do well compared to other 10s. So that's nice to hear, Suze, right? For sure. Okay, guys. Now, before we move on, so Suze, I want you to stick around. Leighton Sheldon is going to join us, but he's only been on for a couple minutes. So you're going to come on before him, and you're going to stick around for after Leighton. But we're going to bring Leighton on, guys, in just a couple minutes. Not even a couple minutes. In 1 minute. I just want to see what's going on in the chat because I see Lou Rock, who's coming on in a little bit as well, is taking energy drinks to stay up. Lou, we're going to get you on shortly. Mark, good to see you. Logan Ward, what's going on, Logan? Good to see you, buddy. Professor says CGC replacing Mike Baker authentication on Fanatics Collect Vault. Sometimes the CGC authentication sticker obscures the actual card. Vintage says, how can CGC gain traction with sports cards? Almost 90% of subs are TCG and sports are just not taking off. I mean, it's tough, right? But Suze,
can I comment on that one?
Please.
Like you can say, and I agree. If you look at like gem rate, right, like the numbers are like, oh, just CGC had 2% market share in sports cards. However, the last couple of months was actually double, and the 4% doesn't sound like, oh, it's only 4%, but like it's doubled. And I'm going to tell you right now, the January numbers are going to be even better than that because we've already surpassed. It's January 11th. We've already surpassed some of those numbers. So I'm saying that even though yes, Pokemon. I love Pokemon. I went to the card shop. We bought Pokemon today. I'm saying that sports is going to get bigger with CGC because I see the numbers. It's
the best slab of all the human grading companies. I say that all the time. I mean, I can tell you just to be, the tag slab is a clearer plastic and it's very similar, but other than that, CGC has the highest quality slab out there, in my personal opinion. So, but I'm glad to hear that your sports is doubling, Suze. That is great to hear. Okay. And US says CGC is great for vintage soccer, very willing to research uncommon issue. Dan the Cardman says CGC's grading guarantee is industry leading. Love it. That's great to hear. Okay. Hold up, everybody, on the CGC stuff for a few minutes. We're going to bring out Leighton Sheldon now. Suze, say hello to Leighton Sheldon.
Hey guys, how are you? Hey Suze.
Hi.
Leighton, how are you, buddy?
Great, thanks. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay.
We can. We've got you. We've got you. Happy New Year. I was saying at the top of the show, you and I recorded the episode 8 of the Vintage Spotlight podcast yesterday, and news to you as well. I have to do a little bit of editing, Leighton. We're gonna drop that either tomorrow or maybe Monday morning. Maybe really early Monday morning. We'll drop that on the Vintage Spotlight YouTube channel and podcast. But what's going on with you right now? What are you excited about in the new year as far as the hobby goes?
Well, I'm bidding in the memory lane auction tonight, and I'm excited about a few items I'm going after for myself. But I'll wait to talk about those till tomorrow to see if I end up winning them or not. Besides that, I think the hobby's heading in a great direction. And, candidly, Suze, I'm not very familiar with CGC as far as sports grading goes, but I was listening for a few minutes earlier. And I think it's great that you guys are spearheading, not just, of course, trying to increase the numbers of cards you're grading, but in general, the hobby, So I think competition is good, kind of keeps all the other grading companies hopefully honest. And, I'm excited to see the growth on your folks' part.
And you know what I think, Suze, too, is that, and I like the Leighton says that, because at the end of the day, PSA has, a humongous piece of the pie, the by far the majority, but people want options nonetheless. Not everybody is happy with that. And so CGC, you know, as far as I am aware, very strong grading staff at the leadership at the senior levels there. And I think it's a great product overall. And so I'm wishing you guys the best for sure. And with sports, of course, too. So that's nice, Leighton. You know, you mentioned, is that, Suze, you have anything you want to say to all that?
No, I appreciate that. You know, even though Pokemon is huge, I think that the more people see the slabs, the more people experience, like, get the CGC experience, like, it's going to cross over into sports cards. And my big thing is just continue to do good work, and people will recognize that.
Right on. You mentioned memory lane, Leighton. So I just logged in, and I'm looking at the items that I put bids in on, and I see I'm probably. Oh, but you guys, you want to see my watch list on memory lane right now?
Yeah, I think that'd be fun.
All right. It's not. It's interesting. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen, guys. We're all going to go off to the far left. Here is my watch list. I'm watching the employee PMGs of Mike Tyson, Tiger Woods, and Hulk Hogan because
those are all on my list, Jeremy.
Are they?
Yeah.
I own a Tyson and a Hulk Hogan. I don't have a Tiger Woods. And this PSA 9 at 5,400 is actually not a bad price right now. So I'm watching the Tyson and the Hogan just out of interest to see what they sell for. The Tiger Woods because, you know, maybe Connor McDavid as well because I have one, want to see what it sells for. And these two vintage cards, 48 Leaf Stan Musial, PSA 4, and the 1950 Bowman, Jackie Robinson, PSA 5. This Jackie is on my want list right now for cards to pick up, you know, in the near-ish future. We'll see when that happens, but I'm probably out of the action tonight on these cards, but that's my watch list. Only those 6 cards, 2 vintage baseball, and some PMGs. That's it. Any thoughts on those guys? Joe, Suze, what do you think?
Go big or go home. I mean, the Jackie, can't go wrong there. And I love the Musial, the blue on the leaf, and it looks very nicely centered. So
yeah, it's for a 4, $3,136. I did put in bids. I believe I think I bid on these at one point. Otherwise, I don't know if I bid on them actually. I don't remember, but so I may or may not be eligible for extended bidding right now. Suze, do you ever buy cards from these auction houses?
Not usually. Generally, when the Jeters end up in these auctions, it's way above my budget. It's usually like a lot of high-end stuff that I can't afford because my card budget is not as high as some other folks.
Jay says none of those are on my list. Good, but Jay, we don't know about Leighton. You're saying, Leighton, please tell me we are not bidding against each other on a non-sports item. You'll probably win if so. Leighton, any insights into what you might be watching tonight? Not to give away any of your secrets.
No comment.
Right.
Hey, Jay Lee, can I ask Leighton a quick question?
Hit it.
Yeah. So Leighton, you did I think it was a story. I'm not real savvy on the whole IG thing, but it was from a show. Maybe it was the Philly show where you bought a collection from somebody who just had an amazing assortment of really obscure and high-end basketball cards. And I think he was living internationally. And I just found it as someone that I'm not sure if it was a player collection or really more of a set collection, but can you speak to that? Because that was exciting to hear about, and I'm curious where that has gone since then.
Oh, sure. Well, I appreciate you bringing it up. A gentleman from New Zealand came into the last Philly show in December and was a Boston Celtics fan, an avid fan. And so, started collecting some of the cards, ultimately led to, collecting some Celtics in the 90s. And so if you know anything about basketball cards in the 1990s, there were some exciting cards made. And so this gentleman, even though, it doesn't seem like he was trying to, put together some sort of world-class insert collection, he just really liked some of the cards and was an avid Celtics fan. So he ended up putting together some PMGs and some of the rare inserts from the 90s. So I think there's 32 cards in all. If you want to read, actually, I don't even know if we put a blog about it yet, but we definitely have a video on it on our YouTube channel for Just Collect, and there'll be a blog coming soon. But the cards recently went off to PSA. And so we're going to reveal those when we get them back. But we did a quick reveal, as you said, from the Philly show with some of those cards. I think we even tagged Nat. And Nat was actually the first person I told about it because I was curious if he needed any for his collection. And so he hasn't commented yet either. Nat's a very smart collector and holds it close to the vest. So we'll see. But we're going to reveal those, Joe, when we get them back. And I appreciate asking about it. They haven't seen the light of day basically since the 1990s. And this gentleman was collecting them not just internationally, but like he had business to do in the States. So when he would come over to the States, he would go to a card shop. eBay was just kind of coming into vogue. So, he would literally make purchases and then make arrangements to pick it up in the States when he would come over and do some business. So it's been a collection that's been tucked away for a long time, and excited to see what some of the grades come back.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. And I just found it fascinating that this international collector had over the years acquired such hard to find cards and really curated a collection that kind of fit together in kind of a interstice between the highest level 90s inserts and the Boston Celtics. So pretty cool.
Very nice. Cool stuff. It's it reminds me, Leighton, that story of the story that we told during our recording. Well, not that we told, but the Sammy Thunder told via an interview he did on his channel about a gentleman going into Venezuela to learn more and hunt down the Venezuelan Topps cards. Just the fact that, international, there is this hobby spans more. It really is bigger than just the United States or North America, Canada. It's we obviously know about how big basketball is in Asia and how big it is in Australia and but Venezuela and other countries. It's just neat to know that we can find friendships, commonality with people in really all corners of the globe. When it comes to this hobby of ours. I mean, look, okay, so where is everybody from right now? I know I'm in Canada. I'm in Calgary, north of Montana. Joe's in Santa Cruz, California. Leighton and Suze, you guys are closer together. Leighton, you're in New Jersey?
Yes.
And Suze, are you right in New York City?
About a little 20, 30 minutes north of New York City.
And here's the collection of us sitting here together, and it wouldn't be this way tonight if not for the hobby. I know I say that a lot, but I just love that about the hobby. Leighton, what do you have going on tonight? I know you're only with us for a couple minutes. I don't want to keep you longer than you can be here. So where are you at right now? How's your time?
I'm good, thanks. I appreciate asking, Jeremy. I think Trading Card Therapy and the Vintage Spotlight and Sports Card Live and all the other podcasts that are out there, like Dan, my buddy Daniel Lynch from Dan's Vintage Baseball. I think it's nice, Jeremy, if every so often we're kind of giving plugs to these other various podcasts, because candidly, if someone didn't tell me at the Philly show, just unsolicited, we were talking vintage cards, and they're like, you should check out this podcast. And I'm like, oh, how do I find it? They're like, oh, this guy Sammy Thunder. I'm like, I think I know Sammy. And, obviously that's what led to our upcoming episode of the Vintage Spotlight. And so my point is, you never know where the rabbit hole is going to take you with content. And so do yourself a favor as a fellow collector, ask other collectors, kind of like, hey, if you're interested in vintage basketball, if you're interested in Venezuelan, maybe they've heard a podcast or a particular interview that really might resonate with you. And I can tell you, I don't know if I would have ever found that, or at least reasonably soon. And so I'm so grateful that I did. And that's what I guess I would leave everyone with is, try to spread the hobby love in a way that's going to be advantageous and serve the entire community, because it's really impossible to know. There's tons of creators. There's tons of individual collectors that are creating content these days. And I have so many different interests. And I love when there's niche people who know more than I do, about Venezuelan cards. So I'm super excited, about learning other niches in the hobby in 2025.
Yeah, and you make a great point too in all that, but also shouting out other podcasts and so Dan right here, who you just mentioned, says Sammy Thunder is a great hobby person. Sammy Thunder has a great YouTube channel. I'm a new subscriber after we had him on our show. And then Dan's Vintage has a YouTube channel. He does interviews. I watched I don't know, probably in mid-December, I watched the interview on Dan's channel where he interviewed you, Leighton. And
yeah, he did a few months ago.
You and I have done so much content together. We've talked so much, yet I learned a lot about you from watching you being interviewed on Dan's show. And I thought that was fascinating that we can still learn more about each other by watching other YouTube channel guys. Dan's Vintage Baseball PC on YouTube. Check that out as well. Leighton, any parting words?
Well, speaking of podcasts, Suze, I didn't know that you had one. So what's the name of yours? I'll make sure I check it out.
So I don't have a podcast. I have a newsletter because I like words. I like writing words.
Well, how do I or someone else sign up for the newsletter?
It's at cardchat.substack.com.
Cardchat on substack.com, guys. Check it out.
So you're making me feel old, Suze. I'm starting to learn about Substack, and you're already putting out newsletters on it, in the hobby. So good for you. I'm excited to check it out.
Thank you.
Right on. Okay, Leighton, thanks for dropping in, buddy.
Thanks, everybody. Nice seeing you.
Good to see you, Leighton. Happy New Year.
All right, guys. We're going to do a couple comments. We have another guest who's in the back room. We're going to bring him on shortly. First, I want to welcome Rage, guys. Quick announcement. Rage is in the building. Welcome to the show, Rage. And I see here that Craig Kreindler says, Suze is the best, to which Brett Miles says, Greg, love your work. I have to admit, I don't know what that work is. Suze, what is Greg Kreindler's work? Do you know?
He is one of the most prolific sports artists you're ever going to find.
Wow, I feel silly.
He has done amazing, real life art of baseball players, vintage. I'm thinking of Jackie Robinson. He's done work for the Negro League Museum. He's done work. He actually has had some Topps cards that he created as well with his work. So he really, if you Google him, you're gonna find it. But he is one of the most well-known sports baseball artists out there.
Very cool. I'll have to check it out. Greg, welcome to the show. Glad you are here. Triple V says Greg is amazing. That Franklin Baker avatar is unreal. Dan says absolute genius. Greg says, oh crap. I love it. Logan, same thing, singing Greg's praises. Vintage says, I wish there was more vintage discussion on YouTube that isn't 100% baseball. And Greg says your check is in the mail. Well, that's cool. Thank you, Suze, for introducing Greg to Sports Cards Live tonight. Okay, Suze, we have Chris McRae in the background right now. He has recently started up a new hobby content resource called The Smarter Collector. He's putting out content on the Smarter Collector website, the Smarter Collector Instagram account, and he's put out a couple of things. It's funny. Twice he has put out suggestions on how to hobby better, and twice they have totally resonated with me because they were like, I was just thinking that. So I'm going to prove that in a moment. But before we bring him on, I just want to know from you, Suze, is there anything else that you wanted to mention or talk about tonight here on Sports Cards Live? Because when Chris comes on, we're going to switch the focus. I want to keep you in the discussion, but we're going to switch to that other topic. So anything else you wanted to dive into?
Yeah, I mean, when we were talking, we initially started talking about Fanatics and the 3 years, and I think we talked about some of the sort of things people don't like, but I think it's, it would behoove us to also say what has been beneficial that they have done, right? And people love the MLB rookie debut patches. That is, I feel overwhelmingly a very positive that they were able to introduce into the space, bringing collectors closer to the athletes. Whether you loved it or not, I personally really enjoyed Fanatics Fest. And I'll be honest, I went into Fanatics Fest I was like, do we really need another one of these? And I went in there and it completely blew my mind, what it was, to the point where it was in New York. I called my husband and was like, you need to bring our child here tomorrow because he's going to have an amazing time. And sure enough, he went and they did. And it was kind of like Disney World, but for sports, and he had a great time. So I think I just like to mention those things because mentally, in my own mind, I could be very down on a lot of things as well, because we talked about as a collector, when things change, we don't love it. So I just want to make sure that there's a little bit of balance there, because I'm also all about balance in life. There has to be balance.
I think that's a great point. There has to be balance. I saw you at Fanatics Fest. I enjoyed seeing you there. I spent a bunch of time at your booth because you guys had some high top tables. I spent a bunch of time chatting there with Neo, Northeast Ohio Sports Cards, and chatted with him in your booth for a good hour. We had a nice chat, and so I was grateful for the space and for CGC being there. It's always good seeing you in person. I see you at all the big shows. That's for sure. You mentioned the debut patch. I'm a humongous fan of the debut patch. I think it is an amazing innovation and card of a player's first time on the professional field. I think it's amazing. And I'm going to be a little controversial here. I'm going to push back a bit, Susan. I'm going to say, because everyone is talking about how great that is, but that's from a card perspective, that's the only thing I can think of that everybody loves that Fanatics has done. So is that thank God they did that, because if they didn't, people would be not too happy, I think, with other changes that they've seen happen. So is that in your mind, Suze, is that are you feeling the same way? I'm so glad they did that so we can offer something positive about Fanatics entering the sports card world, never mind the event side, but the card side by owning Topps. Are they lucky that they did that? And I'm not saying it's lucky that they came up with the idea, but are they lucky that they have that in their back pocket right now because people are talking positively about it?
I think, but they also have done Topps now. Well, I haven't been into the sort of hype, with the lack of a better term, the sweepstakes aspect of if you buy 50,000 LeBron cards, you could get a LeBron James autograph. But, they've been able, with the access the Fanatics have, they have been able to bring people to Topps that Topps hasn't seen before. So I think they've done really cool things with Topps now as well. I don't think it's the only thing that they've done well, but to sit there and pinpoint, right now, I can't sit there and be they've done this. MVP buybacks. I like that. That's true. I do like the MVP buyback program. It is an event, but I like the hobby shop events that they do twice a year where they, potentially, it's hobby rip night, it's called, maybe. So I think when it comes to the products, I will be the first one to be wax, the price is too high for wax. So that's a problem. It's a problem for a lot of collectors. So we go back to pivoting, right? I don't buy as much wax as I used to because it's just too expensive. I'd rather spend $200 on a couple nice Jeter cards than versus buying something I don't know what I'm going to get inside. Yeah. But, they have use their access to hype up the space and, put it more in the mainstream than it used to be. Yeah.
Joe, any thoughts before we move on?
Just, I guess I'm sort of reserving judgment until the licensing switches over. That's all. Because until then, we don't really know how they're going to roll with some of the classic sets in basketball, especially. So that's my only sentiment.
Yeah, I think that's a really, of course, leave it to Joe to kind of reset us to what the appropriate approach would be right there. Farm League says definitely overpriced, but we all know that. Okay, all right, Suze, we're gonna bring on Chris. He goes by Cardi C. He now goes by the Smarter Collector, and let's see what he's bringing. Here we go. Welcome to Sports Cards Live, Chris. What's going on? How are you?
Hey, everyone. Good evening. Happy to be here.
Good to have you. So I was mentioning before when I was kind of, alluding that you were coming on that the Smarter Collector, first of all, congratulations on launching. I think it's a wonderful resource. I'm enjoying your posts. You and I went back and forth on one of them that kind of threw me for a loop. But that's not even interesting enough to get into tonight. What is, though, is so I'm going to tell a quick story, Chris. I was watching a couple of big cards on eBay recently, and a couple of big hockey cards, and I really wanted to add them to my collection. And I was watching them for the 7 or 10 day auction, and thinking to myself along the way, maybe I'm going to buy these cards. And as I got closer and closer to them ending, and the price went up and up, I was like, okay, if I buy these two cards now, they were like $5,000 a pop, Canadian dollars. I'm like, that's $10,000. It's just these aren't high up on my want list. This isn't the 41 play ball DiMaggio I'm coveting so much, or the 33 Gaudy Gehrig. So these are not even on my want list. So I'm not going to buy these cards. I'm actually going to save that. I kind of thought to myself, by not buying those 2 cards, I am up 10 grand now that I can now put towards a card I really want. And I remember talking to Joe, I think it was like that night. I think I was on vacation. We were on the phone. I'm like, Joe, I didn't buy any cards, but I feel like I just made 10 grand today. Like, Joe, do you remember what I was saying? Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah.
And
you were like, I actually made 10. I mean, it was all, you didn't make 10,000, but you saved 10,000.
Yeah. And like, what was it? A week later, I see a post by the Smarter Collector talking about a concept called creative neglect. I'm like, oh, I wonder what that is. And I look into it. So why don't you, Chris, explain what creative neglect is and maybe, validate for me whether or not I was practicing it without being able to name it.
Yeah, for sure. So I consume a lot of content. I try to read as much as I can. I try to broaden my horizons, listen to different podcasts, and just learn. And I've been reading a book called 4,000 Weeks. The whole concept is the average human lifespan is 4,000 weeks. That's a very short amount of time in the grand scheme of things. What are you going to do with those 4,000 weeks? And the author goes on to say, like, because there's an infinite amount of things that we can do in the world, we feel bad when we try to do an infinite amount of things. It's only when we realize and recognize that we have a finite time on this earth and a finite number of things that we can collect that we actually start finding fulfillment. So he introduces this concept of creative neglect. And there's a bunch of different words. It's the joy of missing out. It's what's the opportunity cost here by buying something today? That means I can't buy something tomorrow. But the problem is you don't really know what you're giving up in the moment. So how can we sort of embrace the art of creative neglect? Because it's not an on and off switch. Jeremy, as you're looking at those auctions, I bet emotionally you're getting fired up about the opportunity to win these cards. But fast forward a week or two, are you going to feel the same way? And is there going to be a bigger and a better card that you want to chase instead? So he breaks it down into 3 components. He says, pay yourself first, limit middling priorities, and limit your work in progress and resist the allure of middling priorities. So connecting it to sports cards, to me, I take that as pay yourself first, go after the biggest card in the set first. If you're going to do like high grade 86 Fleer, go for the Jordan first and get that. Don't start to pick up all the little cards along the way and lose steam before you have the opportunity to actually get the big kahuna. Limit your work in progress. I take this very personally. My own collecting, I started out 300 Great Baseball Cards of the 20th Century by Mike Payne, PSA set registry. I wanted to collect a rookie card of every Cy Young, an MVP winner. I wanted to do master sets of Allen and Ginter and Gypsy Queen. And then I was ripping 2017 and 2018 wax on top of it. And I cast such a wide net that nothing was completed and I wasn't feeling fulfilled as a collector. Now, this might upset Suze a little bit, but I found my stride when I started collecting Nomar Garciaparra. And there was a 3-year span there where he was the best shortstop in the major leagues. And then I think Jeter's got the legacy and he outpaced Jeter from 2000 onward. But the last part is resisting the allure of middling priorities. And I draw that back to Warren Buffett and his prioritization strategy. He said, write down your top 20 priorities. So for collecting, maybe it's 20 cards you want or 20 projects you're working on. Now, take that list and choose the top 5 from that list. That's what you're going to focus on. The other 20, you do everything in your power to ignore those because they're just tempting enough to make you like convince yourself that it's worth those purchases. But those are exactly the types of projects that prevent you from getting the top 5 projects that like are your prioritization. So there's a bunch of different ways to refer to creative neglect, joy of missing out, opportunity cost, finding your lane, collecting what you love. But at its core, it's like you have to have self-restraint and self-control and figure out like what really lights the fire inside of you and go headfirst into that.
Yeah, I think it's such a great concept that is from outside of our hobby to apply to our hobby and all of our individual approaches. So I want to ask Joe and Suze, do you guys, and we'll start with you, Suze, do you actually practice creative neglect in your collecting of Derek Jeter and anything else, where you deliberately force yourself not to purchase a card you really want because it could take away from your ability to buy the higher priority card when it's available? Do you have instances of this in your mind?
I have never learned the art of self-control, so no. Like, if I want something, I'm like, yeah, let's go get it. Come on. Like, literally in the middle of the day, I'll be like, I'm gonna go to Barnes and Noble. I'm gonna go buy a box. Like, I'm just gonna go do it. So no, I don't do that. But where I do probably is with wax, more so in the last probably 2 or 3 years. It's like, do I want to buy this hobby box for $200, or would I rather do anything else with my money? And it's usually the second option, which is then buying the cards I want.
And I mean, you bring up hobby boxes, which is the opposite of practicing creative neglect, unless it's what you do. Unless that's what you do. That is, to me, the exact opposite of where experienced collector's priority should be. Not to say don't have fun and open the odd box, but you're not getting many cards you want. But that's a whole other thing. Joe, what about you?
I mean, this reckoning aligns with my hobby experience because for so many years it has been eclectic and impulsive and not necessarily, in hindsight, the way I would like to devote the precious resources that I've had. So it makes sense. And then, to know versus, to do versus to know is not always the same. So there has been a growth, I would hope, in myself. It's not perfect, but I am moving in that direction of being more focused and intentional in how I'm collecting. Yeah. And the book sounds fascinating. 4,000 weeks. When you put it that way, my God, what did I do this week? Because there's only 2,999 more. Yeah. So great stuff, Chris, and appreciate introducing that. And that for me is actually one of the sweetest parts of the hobby, is kind of thinking about your own strategies. And because it's a very personal thing, it doesn't have to be the same as anyone else. You can be, you can take cues, you can look at what other people are doing, but ultimately only you have your own life experiences, your own fandom, and your own resource pool to draw from. So it's very personal in that way, and something I hope everyone that's listening takes joy in, having agency in that.
And one other thing you said, Chris, was, get the biggest card first if you're looking at a set. You mentioned 86 Fleer maybe, and that's something that I also believe in, if for no other reason, that it's usually those cards that go up in value the fastest if you're buying, blue chip kind of stuff, right? And because I've heard so many people tell me, I'm working on the set, but I'm buying all the commons first. Well, you could burn out if all you're buying is the commons, players you don't even care about, only to save the good ones for the end. That never made sense to me, but so many people approach it that way. Whereas for me, it's like, go for the big cards first. Then you might realize you don't even need the rest of them. Maybe you don't need the whole set. Maybe you can make your own set out of the master checklist and say, why do I need, if there's 50 cards in the set, 10 players are really great and 40 are commons that you don't really care about. Why fill up your space with 40 cards you don't care about unless it's a really cool set like the T206 Polar Bears or something like that? I say that for our good friend CRT Sports Cards. But Chris, how do you do you anything else you want to say about that?
I would just say, going back to what Joe was saying about the journey of self-discovery in the hobby. And I know Brett asked a question about this in the chat. We aren't going to figure out what really lights us up without trial and error. And that was actually part of the reason why I built the Smarter Collector. Was in an attempt to help collectors shorten that learning curve. For most of us, it's, anywhere from 2.5 to 5 years if you're lucky before you start to hit that sweet spot. how can we take that period for new collectors and trim it to 6 months? Here are the important cards of a player that you might be interested in. Here's the reasons why people think it's important. Those reasons might not resonate with you. If you don't want to be the best collector of this player, like, well, don't pay attention to the best cards of the player. There might be a certain aesthetic, there might be a certain element to that, but you aren't going to figure that out until you actually buy some cards and see what emotions they really elicit in hand.
I like you said the best collector, and right there, you kind of lost me after that because my mind started thinking, okay, the best collector, is that the best person that is a collector of a certain thing, or is that the person who has the most money and can buy the most cards? Because it's like we are so swept up in our sports cards that we think we're a professional athlete sometimes. Like, who's the best collector of Michael Jordan, or who's the best collector of Derek Jeter, or Ken Griffey Jr., whoever. Who cares who the best collector? Right. There is no best collector. As soon as we're comparing ourselves to other collectors, it's like, what do you just enjoy? Like how do you respond to that? Because that kind of irks me a little. Not that you said it, but it kind of irks me.
I think you hear it in the hobby, and my rebuttal to that is like, who's the judge of that, and what community are you saying you're the best in? I wrote an article recently on the psychology behind one-of-one collectors, because I don't have any one-of-ones, and I don't really have the desire to overextend myself to add those types of cards to my collection. But I think if you reframe it, you could be the best at something as long as you're drawing circles around what it is that you want to be best at. Maybe it's someone that has the most number of cards. Maybe it's someone that has the most number of cards from a certain set, or the most number of players represented in their set, or from a certain era. I think not everyone is motivated by being the best at something or in the hobby for different reasons psychologically. And I would encourage everyone in the audience to just ask yourself why 5 times. Why did I buy this card? Okay. Why? I like the player. Okay. Why do I like the player? Why this card in particular? Okay. I grew up watching the player. Okay. Why are you motivated to spend your money now on a player that you liked growing up? What are you trying to get out of life? It's a really sort of scary exercise when you get to like the third why. So I usually stop there. But if you find yourself buying cards without any sense of purpose or fulfillment, and you're just doing it to fill time, I think that's a pretty good warning sign to like stop, check yourself, and figure out like, hey, are you collecting the right stuff for you? Or is it because someone else told you it's what you should buy?
And sometimes we need advice. We do need some guidance from more experienced collectors to know what are cards that are, just kind of thought of by the general hobby as being more important for a player, from what sets are the most important or have the longest run, the most equity from being, the best brands kind of thing, the most important brands. I can understand looking for advice that way, but I think, and the chat agrees, that USMNT Soccer, I think, said it best right here. The best collector is the one having the most fun, not concerning themselves with keeping up with the Joneses and what everybody else has. Bob Boozle says, you're right, there is no best collector. Bob Boozle, best SCL viewer. Can't argue with that, Bob Boozle, although your wife might be our best viewer, if that's possible. Dan says, I have the best collection for me. Like, that's what it's all about, right? But Suze, I want to ask you, because you are a player collector. So how do and you are a very experienced collector, Suze, but like, are you sure that you're collecting what's right for you?
Yeah, I mean, yes, because this is something I've thought about too. And I've been working on very similar stuff, very similar content of like, as a player collector, that's what my focus is on. So if you want to become a player collector, how do you start? And like, one of the questions I say is like, make sure like that's the player you really love. Like, that's the player that really resonates and collects with you. That if I'm going to have this card 5 years from now, am I still going to love it? Am I still going to, even 5 months from now, am I still going to love it? Or am I buying something because I feel like I need to buy something? Like, you really need to sit there and think about it and understand if this is something that you really want. So for me, like I have a Derek Jeter collection, and like he's kind of expensive. So there's been so many times I'm like, man, I really wish I had a cheaper PC. Like I wish there was somebody out there. And every time I think about like, oh, I should collect somebody else, I don't get the same sort of like joy inside that I would get from collecting somebody else. And then Anthony Rizzo came to the Yankees, and I love Anthony Rizzo too. So I started collecting his Yankees cards only. It was very specific. Like I didn't want his Cub cards. I didn't want whoever he ends up. I'm not going to collect those cards. It was very specific to just his Yankees cards. So, and I knew it because it's like, there was that feeling inside. Like, it's like, I like to call it like, it spoke to my soul. Like, so I'm always looking for something that speaks to my soul. And those two things did. So it's like I've tried to almost force myself at times, but I'm like, what am I doing? Like this isn't going to bring me the joy that the other things do.
Yeah, it's so important to really know what you like. A comment just came in on the end here from Aiden Oliveras. Aiden Olives says, keep collecting your authentic mem and leave the game worn for the real collectors. Now, this seems to me to be a real narcissistic, I'm better than you sort of comment. Somebody who like is just not somebody I'd want to be friends. Like this Aiden Oliveras guy, I don't know who this is, but he seems like somebody that I would not want to hang out with at a party, you know, because and we're going to talk about this very soon with our next guest, Lou Rock, who's coming on, who in a run of his recent, I want to save it for when Lou comes on, because it was a really interesting video that he put out recently about people who are not in our hobby, but that look maybe down on us for what we collect, telling us that like just the fact that this comment here says, leave it for the real collectors. Like, F off, bro. You know, like what, like get out of here. You're not welcome in this chat anymore because you really are being a bit of a dick. I'm just going to put it out there. You know, I usually don't like to get like that, but that irks me. Lou Rock is going to have my back on that when he comes on in a little bit because, you know, people do that. Now, okay, Chris, Suze, Joe, I want to get to some other comments if you don't mind, some more, you know, typical comments of this wonderful community, not like Mr. Olives brought us. So I'm gonna go back in time a little bit here. And first of all, Vintage has said, will everyone still love debut patches when they are in year 10 of making them? Suze, what do you say to that?
Look at the superfractors, right? People still love superfractors. Those are also 101. So I think that it's always going to depend on the player. If it's a great prospect and a great player, they will care.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they will care 10 years in because it is such a special card. Vintage, I think that I think they're gonna have lasting power. Laura says, greetings, Jeremy and all. Miss Suze, congrats on your Torre Berra auto card. Yes, that was something that you were hunting for a long time. And then did you find it in an LCS or somewhere?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a crazy story, honestly. So I went to the David Adams pop-up shop in New York City, just to go. Actually, Mama Breaks was there. Like, I was going anyway, and she's like, hey, I'm here. Let's do some content. So I'm like, sure. So I went to David Adams, and while I was looking around, I saw the card in the case. I'm like, oh, here's this Berra from this Berra Torre dual auto from this great product, 2004 UD Classics, I think it was. And I was like, I'm just going to walk around the shop a little bit because you needed a key to get in the case. It's not like anybody could just like go in the case and grab it. I walk around the shop just looking around. I come back and it's gone. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like, how is this card gone? So anyway, I put it on Instagram. I was like, oh, I was at the shop. You know, it was really cool. And I didn't actually say anything. Somebody in the comments said something like, oh, any cool Joe Torre autos? I was like, I actually did. I saw a Torre Berra auto that I was looking at, but it actually, like, a collector got it before I did. And then somebody commented and said, hey, I'm the one who bought that card. Turns out I actually had this already at home. And it was only number 200. I already had a double at home. Do you want it? So I said, yes. And I bought the card for what he paid for it. And he sent me the card. And now I have it.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's a great story. It's truly a great story. Okay. Sanderson Dor says, great to see Chris on the show. Great guy. Brett Miles says, the art of creative neglect, interesting conversation. How much trial and error went into finding that pocket of enjoyment in what you collect? Took me years to figure out my love of player collecting. And that's part of the process that we all go through. It is finding our way. Farm League, always buy the big cards first and fill in those around them. Brett says, best elicits comparison. Yes, it does. something that has changed a lot for me over the years. I tend not to compare my collection with others. Now I celebrate the others who collect the same cards that I do. I think that's just a really great approach. Brett says, Suze, how has your Jeter collecting evolved or changed over the past, say, decade? What's the biggest learning moment you've had?
I always thought, like, when I first started collecting his cards, in my mind, I'm like, I am going to collect every single card that's ever been made of him. And then I realized there was 20,000 different Derek Jeter cards, and I was never going to collect everything. So that really put that in perspective for me. So I was able to actually, even though, like, I still will buy any Derek Jeter card, I did put it into sort of tiers. Like, I want to complete the 92 to 96 run first, and then go from there. So I have it, actually, it's very specific within the Jeter collection, because I know I'm never going to collect 20,000.
And I have to ask, what do you say to this comment from AIH Sports? Oh, hold on, where'd it go? Oh, did I lose my comment from AIH Sports? Hold on, everybody. Hold on, I want to find that. There it is. Rizzo was better as a Cub. What do you say to that, Suze?
He's not wrong.
And okay, fair enough. Yeah, right. And Mark Santucci says, Suze, if a player changes teams, what do player collectors do? And this is one of the biggest reasons why I don't collect I don't player collect active players, because I'm so scared, like especially young ones, that they're gone as soon as they, get into free agency or what have you. How do you answer this one, Suze?
I mean, it's all going to come down to personal preference. Are you collecting the player because he's on your team, or are you collecting a player because you like the player? So thank God I didn't have to figure that out, because the Derek Jeter was only a one-team player. But like I said, with Rizzo, I always I like Rizzo. If he wasn't on the Cubs, I would collect him. And then when he got traded to the Yankees, literally, we were at the National that year when that trade went down. And I was like, this is amazing news. I have a new PC. Meanwhile, we were in Chicago, and there's kids crying in front of me because Rizzo got traded to the Yankees. And I'm like, sorry, kids, but I got a new PC coming in.
Yeah. No, listen, it can be tough. Joe, you're a big Warriors fan. Steph Curry. You're always saying to me, Jer, have you gotten yourself a Curry card yet? Now I know you player collect some young players. How do you feel when your player, who's the player that got traded to Washington from the Warriors last season?
Jordan.
Poole?
Yeah.
Poole. How did you you had a few Poole cards. How did you feel when that happened?
I mean, I could probably talk for an hour about Jordan Poole, Draymond Green, and the punch. How I felt about it, I had a lot of mixed feelings. But you can, if you're a player collector, you can have moments where suddenly everything changes unexpectedly, and that's part of life, right? That kind of gets back to what we were talking about earlier, like the black went away. Like, what do we do now? So you kind of got to pivot and stay nimble and open-minded. I did want to mention to Suze, so I'm also an Oakland A's fan, and I was there for the flip. I was sitting on the third base side when Jeter did his famous home plate flip to get the Giambi brother there, and that hurt. But it was also one of those moments where you're witnessing greatness in person, and the whole stadium was just like, oh, wow, what that guy just did.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it's kind of like, even though I was a fan of the A's and it was heartbreaking, it was also really amazing to be there for baseball brilliance. So anyway, I wanted to mention that. And then Chris, I want to underscore what you said about the losses, and kind of like some people talk about like the tuition of collecting, right? Like learning the lessons. And I think that's something that maybe we'd all do well to acknowledge more frequently. We so often want to have the kind of trophy of like, look what I did, and it was a big win. If I could have gotten to what you're saying in even 3 to 5 years of prioritizing, it might have taken me 15 to 20, and I still do it. So it's not as if there's that I've arrived. I still make mistakes. But I guess the point I'm wanting to really emphasize is I think not just in sports cards collecting, but in education, in all walks of life, we don't actually look at how failure connects to success. And I think, in a failure in whatever context you want to understand it as a collector, making a purchase or an acquisition that in hindsight you go, yeah, I didn't really need that, and I'm going to get rid of it, and it's much ado about nothing. So, thanks for bringing up that point, and I hope all of us can kind of maybe, I was in education and we had faculty meetings, and sometimes we would do, as a way of acknowledging our own imperfections, kind of like the worst mistake, in the last month, like, and you get the plumber award, right? Like the dowel there, and it's like, you won by making a big mistake, and being real with it, being maybe even a little silly, but most importantly, self-reflecting and learning from it, because if you learn from it, it's actually a win.
Yeah, it's very hard to convey that the enjoyment a lot of people get out of collecting is in the process itself, and not like actually acquiring and holding the cards in the long term. I had mentioned this a couple weeks ago, but whenever you talk to a new collector and you show them a card that you're really amped up about, what's their first question about the card? How much is that card worth?
Yeah.
It always goes back to value. It's not like, what is this person, like, what connection do you have to this card personally? Like, what's the story? What did you need to go through to get here? How many mistakes did you need to make? And like, to be fair, like, how much is that worth is a very compact question that packs a lot into like a single sentence. Whereas I don't think I can clearly articulate, oh, I've been working on finding this card for 5 years and I unearthed it from a collector in Japan, and like they're going to lose attention if I can't draw them in some way. So I don't know how to like put on my marketing hat and move the hobby more towards that way. But exactly what you said, I think we all need to have an understanding as collectors that like we should take joy in the process of finding the cards and building that collection, not so much like just relying on the physical acquisition of the cards and appreciation after the fact.
Well said. There's some great comments about player collecting, and we do have Lou Rock in the back. And Lou, we're gonna get you on in just a couple minutes. I promise. You cool back there? You cool? Thumbs up. He's giving me 2 thumbs up. I want to read a couple comments. I think that tie in pretty well. But first, Filmington says Cardi C is the man. Very nice, Filmington. Good to see you. Found Treasures is here. Bob Boozle quotes me on that. Hockey doesn't agree with Adam with Mr. Olives, but enjoyed the troll. I don't know what it says about you that you enjoyed the troll, hockey, but good for you. Dan says, I player collect Seaver, but stay away from anything not Mets. Still traumatized by the Midnight Massacre trade of Seaver, and that's so hard. I mean, my all-time favorite athlete is Teemu Selanne of the Winnipeg Jets and Anaheim Ducks, and when he was traded, I shed a tear, literally. But I collect him in Winnipeg and in any uniform because I'm just a fan of the athlete in that case. I'm glad he played for my team. That's what introduced me to him. But it can be tough for sure. Mookie Chilson says, what up, guys? The only good thing about DeGrom leaving the Mets is that it limited the amount of Mets cards I need to be concern myself with. Ties into what Dan says. It's player collecting, that kind of thing. We do often need to find ways to limit what we are collecting. It comes back to what Chris really says in terms of that creative neglect and being able to manage our budgets, order and rank our priorities, and just build the best collections for us. So I love that concept, Chris. Suze, how are you doing? It's great to have you. We're going to bring Lou on, so I want to know, is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we move on?
No, I'm good. I can't wait to hear what Lou has to say.
All right, so Suze, I'm going to say thank you so much for taking the time, staying up late out in close to New York City, coming on. We'll have you back again for sure. Thanks for bringing yourself and all your thoughts to us and the audience.
This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. We'll have Suze back on here in due course, guys, for sure. She's a hobby, a gem of the hobby, no doubt about it. Chris, we're going to bring Lou Rock TV. Mr. Lou Rock onto the show. But Chris, you're going to stick around too. And let's bring him on. Lou, here you come right now. Right now. There he is, guys. Lou Rock TV, a collector for the people. What's going on, buddy?
What's up, brother? I can feel for Suze being an East Coaster. It's 11:30 over here. I got a lot of love for her, for my Yankee folks. Got a little Jeter auto for her.
Nice.
Pulled this as a kid. One of my favorite cards all time because I pulled it. The Jeter Gold. At the time, I had no idea. I just threw in my album. You know, I didn't. It was. I think I was in high school when I realized it was gold, and I threw in a top loader.
Well, before we get too deep, Lou, I want to first introduce you to Joe. I want to introduce you to Chris. Guys, say hello. Say hello to Lou. Good.
Hey, what's up,
Now,
Lou?
I know Cardi C. Who doesn't know Cardi C? And Joe, what's up?
What's up?
I want to mention, guys. So Cleveland National, just this past year, late July, I walk into my hotel room, walk into the hotel on Tuesday night. The show starts on Wednesday by myself, checking in. And as I'm walking out of the hotel to go to Denny's next door to have dinner, I run into the Misfits. I run into three great guys in the hobby, guys that I had come across before, including hobby president, Mr. John Mangini, right? And we had a great time, Lou. We had a great time. I went to dinner myself. I came back. I sat with you guys for a couple hours, and we just had a great conversation. It was just a wonderful way to kick off the National for myself. And so I want to thank you for that, first of all. And it led to we've had John Mangini on. We got you on tonight. We're going to bring James on in the future. Just a great group of guys. But I want to say first of all, and again, welcome to Sports Cards Live, Lou. It's your first time here. I've been a fan of yours. And just like we have a couple of comments already here from the chat, Mookie Chilson, who knows, he says Lou Rock is a big time booking. I'm psyched for this. Stoop says Lou Rock TV, YouTube legend. With that, I got to ask you, Lou, are you in the YouTube Hall of Fame? I don't know who all is in it, but I know about. Are you a member of the YouTube Hall of Fame, Lou?
I am in that exclusive club, the pinnacle of YouTube. I take it seriously. It's one of those things, you know, people's like, it's not a real thing, it's not. But I owe a lot to YouTube, and it's humbling when your peers, your friends, they think so highly of you, you know. I'm just a guy collecting by myself, and with YouTube, you know, I can it's almost like therapy, you know. You talk it. Sure. I talk into a camera, but I'm really talking to the people. I'm talking to the YouTube universe, you know what I'm saying? And that's kind of why I did the last video, because I had no one else that could relate.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. So let's talk about that. And Joe and Chris, I think you guys are gonna find this pretty interesting, and then I did, and then then we got trolled, the very similar troll in the comments here. You know, we have Sports Cards Live, myself, been very fortunate over the coming up on 5 years of having a really respectful chat. But you know, the odd bad seed gets through, and you know it's going to happen. But that's okay. That's okay. You know, we can handle it. But tell your story, Lou. I want to let Joe, Chris, and of course everybody listening and watching to hear this story, because I have a feeling it'll resonate with many of us. But for anyone who hasn't, first of all, seen it, you can go watch Lou's video on this. It's a real kind of a raw discussion he has with him and his camera, being us. And also just check out Lou Rock TV on YouTube and subscribe if you haven't yet. But Lou, tell us what happened. What am I talking about here?
I appreciate that. But just a little background. I've been collecting since second, third grade. I'm 43 years old. Don't let the baby face fool you. So collecting is a part of me. It's who I am. So, you know, kind of like what Cardi C was saying before, you know, people find out you're a card collector and they're like, oh, you know, I got this collection. You should check it out. It's always junk wax, 90s, McGuire, Sammy Sosa. So, you know, I had a little get together. I had a buddy from work come over, and, we're just doing the arbitrary, how things. We just had the holidays. Things are good. Life is good. Then we start talking about, obviously the holidays. So I was like, yeah, the wifey hooked me up with a couple cards. Willie McCovey rookie. She hooked me up with Max Scherzer rookie because, I love future Hall of Famers. I love post-war Hall of Famers. And he's like, oh, yeah. He started talking about his collection when he was a kid. But Rachel's like, yeah, no, but he's pretty serious. Rachel's my wife. And we get into it. He's like, yeah, I'll check it out because I was like, bro, I don't care if you have 87 Maguires. I don't care if you have 86 Canseco's because I grew up in that generation. So I was excited. And I was like, yo, let's go upstairs to the man cave and I'll show you what I got. We could talk about it. So we're walking around. And of course, the question comes. He actually sees this card. He sees my 49 Campanella.
Boom. Great card.
I love this card. The wife got me this, I think 2 Christmases ago. Was not expecting anything like this. I was always, as my boy John Mangini, the hobby president, he always calls me cheap. I was looking for like a 1.52. Wifey blew it out of the park. She has a better eye than I do.
5.
Yeah. So I told him, and I was like, it means more to me than what it costs. He's like, come on, bro. And I know this guy. I work with him. We bust each other's chops. I'm like, I told him. He's like, God dang, bro. Life is good. I'm like, yeah, life is good, Wifey put the money aside and things, this and the other. So then I show him around, and then I get to, he's like, so what are you going to get next? And there's another card that's related to this in the 49 Bowman that I've been wanting for a while. And the wife just gave me the green light. And he's like, well, what's that going to cost you? And I told him. And he just looked at me, almost side-eyed me. He's like, are you kidding me, bro? Are you serious right now? What a waste of money, which to me was a slap in the face.
Yeah.
Now, I could get it. He knows my kids. I got a kid in college. I got one in high school. I got Bob. Everyone knows Bob. She's on the channel. Probably the only reason people watch my channel, see Bob, my daughter. But I was like, are there no lights in my house? Are the kids hungry? Are my kids wearing the same clothes 4 days in a row? It's like, bro, it's not like they need anything. They have everything they want. Who are you to tell me? It's almost like those taboos. You can't really tell a parent how to parent. It's like, don't tell me how to use my money. You know what I'm saying? This is my passion. When I buy a card, I always try to get it for the best deal, not because I want to save money per se, because if I save money on this card, I could get another card. That's how my mind works. So if I go to like the National and had 2 G's and I could get my big boy card, yeah, if I see a card for 2,000, that's a deal. I'm still gonna try to knock more off of it just so I could get another card, and that's how my mind works. And I didn't know how to react to the question when he just, it wasn't even a Question, it was a statement. He's like, "Are you kidding me? What a waste of money."
Oof.
I was in shock. I was
offended.
Not so much offended. I was more annoyed than anything. It's like, bro, you've known me for like 10 years. Like, you know the type of person I am. And mind you, he's a car guy. I love F1. I know cars. But that's just not my thing. I just like racing. I like the adrenaline. I like fast cars, but I couldn't rebuild an engine. But he's into that. And he's got a 6-figure car. And he's telling me all this. So I bring it up. I'm like, well, bro, your passion is cars. You got a 6-figure car that you don't like driving to the store because you don't want to get a scratch or nicked. You got to put the premium gas. You only drive it on the weekends.
Give it to him.
I'm like, bro, and I'm not saying it's an investment, but the worst buy you will ever make is a vehicle. The moment you drive it off the lot, you're gonna knock 30% off. He's like, it's different though, because it takes me places and this and that. I'm like, if you only knew what these cars meant to me, you see dollar signs, you see cardboard. Literally, you just think, yes, it's cardboard, it's pictures of sports people. But I have more, like, to me, if you ever saw my Christmas video of my wife giving this to me, I had to tell her, I'm like, cut it off. I told people it was allergies. There was a lot of allergies, a lot of pollen in the air. But like, to me, the memory of her, the fact that she knew I wanted this card, and then she gets me a stunner. You know what I'm saying? It could have been a 0.5, an authentic, but she got me this card because she knew how much it meant. So now her goal is always to make me tear up. But
yeah,
I mean, to me, the whole journey of collecting, one of my favorite things in the world, I got to get more to it this year because I started focusing more on Hall of Fame autographs last year and bigger boy cards. But who I am, what I'm true to, is like going to the flea markets, going to the yard sales, finding those diamonds in the rough. And I just love finding that gem. Like, for instance, I haven't shown this yet. I got this card twice already, but when you find it in a value box, this is probably the nicest looking Pujols, future Hall of Famer. And I showed the guy. It wasn't like I was trying to deceive him. I'm like, hey, bro, you know you got Albert Pujols rookie card in your value box? He's like, yeah, I buy collections. I cherry pick. So I bought a bunch of cards. You know, I'm not going to be like, here, can I have it for 50 cents? But essentially, I got this for pennies on the dollar because, you know, that's what I do. To find buried treasure like that, to me, is the ultimate. And then I get home, I take it out of the yellow top loaders. You know, you got the yellow top loaders. When I see this, I start to salivate. I'm like, oh my gosh, what can I uncover? What is in this box of dust that no one has seen? And that's what gets my juices flowing. I love it. And then, you know, part of my cardboard therapy, I take it out the top loaders. I wipe off the dust, put it in a One Touch or a Mag Pro. And, you know, that's all she wrote. But I've talked to my buddy. I've talked to him since. And he's like, bro.
Wait, did you have to go to the hospital to talk to him? Or did you...
No. He came by the next day. Like I say, I've known him. He actually lives in my neighborhood. And I didn't really, you know, make a big deal of it. He just started, you know, we just picked up where we left off. But I still felt a certain kind of way. And my wife was like, you just got to let that stuff go. You can't let people bother you like that. I'm like, it's not so much the fact that he doesn't understand, because it's hard to explain to a non-hobbyist your passion. Like, my buddy loves fishing. If I go fishing, I like the charters where there's music, there's beer on the boat. I can't do the silent, quiet time. I don't have the patience for it. That's why I wasn't a sniper in the military. I don't have the patience to just sit there all day. But I appreciate it. He'll talk about going on his bass boat, going, you know, he's talking about these different lures. And I sit there and listen. I'm like, man, that's fascinating, because he's my friend, you know? And I get when you have that thing. And by that thing is something that helps you decompress from the day, something that you could just meditate while you do. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, I think everyone needs that thing, because if you don't, you're just going to explode. And honestly, after I made my little video, I felt better, because I felt like I got off my chest in my little therapy session. And reading the comments, I was having conversations in the comments, because people were like, bro, this happens all the time. Or, you know, people were giving me advice. You know, a lot of people's like, you need to cut him out of your life. I'm not going to cut him out of my life. He's just someone who he's just someone who doesn't understand. And I'm not going to hold it against him, but I had to talk to somebody. And that's where That's why I deal with the YouTube world.
Well, you can always block him from your YouTube channel, right? That's a power you can have that he might not even know about. Farm League says he was legit angry if you haven't seen the video. And, I wouldn't say that I noticed you fuming, but you were upset by that. And, it's like when I said before, were you offended? Like if someone walked into this room right here and looked at my cards that I have on display or any of my collectibles and said something like that, like what a waste of money, or like, it's like, what are you talking about? Maybe for you it would be a waste of money, but like you're coming into my house and you're dissing what I have on display, which probably tells you that I love it, and you're going to come in and diss it. Like, I'm not going to go into your house and look at your kid and say, oh man, your kid's really ugly. Like, I'm not going to, like it's, I know it's a different thing, but it's not that far off from disrespecting something that you love.
I
right?
can tell you this, if it was like someone I didn't know, like if it was like my wife's friend and she came up, or it's like I've known this guy for years, and we've gone to work together. We've been through some stuff together. So my wife is like, you got to take it like this. Maybe he felt so comfortable around you. He just really wanted to tell you. He feels honest enough to tell you what he thinks all the time. And it's true. I mean, he's pretty a blunt person, but he's kind of dense, if that makes sense.
Well, it does. And it's proven it's dense, because to say it's a waste of money when you don't understand something is really just an ignorant. It's just an ignorant comment. And, I think that, I wanted to ask Joe and Chris too, like if these guys have had any experiences like that. We're all in the hobby. We've been in the hobby for years. I've had now I can't say I've had someone come to me and be that like ignorant about it, but I've had people ask me like, or just show, like if I said I bought this card I paid big money for a couple cards, and they're like, big money for me, not big money for some other people. But if I've spent $10,000 on a card, their eyes pop like, what? Not because they think I wasted my money, because they can't believe that there's cards out there that cost $10,000. So I haven't really had that experience. Maybe I have, I just don't remember it. But Joe, have you had an experience where you've told them what you paid for something and they've kind of like just been rude about it?
I mean, not in a direct kind of way. I think, most of my friends, they, understand that it's, something within the realm of reason for me kind of coming up, and things have changed maybe in the last, 5 or 10 years, the exponential, growth of the hobby. But and then even since then, most people have seen some kind of major news outlet or something where there's a little light bulb inside. They kind of know like, oh yeah, I guess that is, it's kind of like artwork, or, I guess people really do pay that, so I haven't gotten that particularly, but I wanted to ask Lou real quick, what was the 49 Bowman that you were talking about? Was it the Satchel Paige, or was it the Jackie, or what were you looking at?
I haven't told much because I don't like competition either.
Oh, sorry.
I'll tell you. It's the Jackie. I got the green light for the Jackie.
Yeah, that's a beautiful card. That's a beautiful card. And the irony of your story is there's so many other things that this person, this friend, could have said that about, that would have been a little closer to the truth. But like a 49 Bowman Campanella isn't that, and it's certainly a 49 Bowman Jackie isn't that. So, props for you for holding space for that, and I think it's just people coming from different vantage points, and
that's what it is.
I try to just roll with that and accept it as everybody's got their perspective.
Yeah, you can come from a different vantage point, but I think that like the empathetic person understands that they might not know the whole situation, can maybe ask more questions before throwing out that insulting sort of comment about something that you do love. Now, Lou, before you respond to Joe, I want to get Chris involved here too and ask you, like, what's your take on all this, Chris? And have you had an experience like that before?
No, when I got back into collecting, I had gone through phases where I would take up a new hobby for 6 to 12 months and then I would abandon it. Once I started collecting sports cards again, it didn't stop. And I think my friends and family recognize that. It's like, oh, this is shit. This is legit. he's sticking around here. So I'm lucky to not have faced that situation before, but just reflecting on your story, Lou, one, I need your wife to teach my wife how to buy cards, because that card is sweet. But two, I think about like the societal script, especially in the United States. You go to a good school, you get a good job, you spend to your limits, you go on multiple vacations a year, you get the good car, not sports card, like an Audi or a BMW or something. And then you work until you're no longer physically able to. You spend a couple of years and then you die. Nowhere in that script is build a collection of sports cards that like personally motivate me like to wake up every day and chase new sets, new projects, and like build myself as an individual. So if someone outside of the collecting bubble comes and sees a collection like yours, Lou, like the first thing they can think of is, oh, you have all this money invested in this that you should be experiencing through like this societal script. Like you should have gone on vacations and you should have gotten a bigger car. This is such a waste of money. But they don't have the appreciation for like your entire history in the hobby. And on one hand, I'm like, that's sad because I want everyone to experience that. But then on the other hand, it's sort of like skateboarding in the 80s. Yeah. The culture of skateboarding, like pre and post Tony Hawk, it is totally different. And the like original skateboarders mourn the culture when it went super mainstream and everyone understood how to skateboard and like wanted to be part of skateboard culture. So I'm trying to figure out, is it better that we protect the bubble before it gets sort of sanitized and delivered to the masses? I don't know.
I mean, I'm always going to be an OG. I'm always going to do what I'm going to do. I'm okay with the hobby. Now, I have issues with certain things of the hobby, the new hobby, the gambling aspect, the overproduction again, a lottery ticket, if you will, the manufactured rarity, things like that. But I'm just going to do me. Like you said earlier, the hobby is starting to get more eyes. There's more people into it. And for whatever reason it may be, the hobby's healthy. So there's going to be baseball cards. I love new cards. I love old cards. It doesn't matter to me. I love refractors. I love gold parallels. And, if I just stick to what's important to me, then I'll be all right. Like, to me, my favorite cards are the base cards. Like, this is technically a base card. This is a base card. You know what I'm saying? So people have asked me, how do you collect modern? And I'm like, I just keep it to as simple as I can to its truest form. I always get the base card. The base card to me will always be the foundation of collecting. I love the base card. Get the refractor, get the rainbow foil. And then in 2001, they started doing the gold parallels, which are up to the year. If you happen to like a player, like, Jeter, if you want player collect, go for the rainbow. You just can't do it for all 22 sets that come out for that year. And chase that. I love Stadium Club. I'll do, like, this year I saw the Bernie Williams. Bernie Williams was my guy growing up. And I saw the Bernie photograph that they use. He's hustling, sprinting. It's an unusual photo. I'm like, that's dope. And luckily, I love Bernie Williams. It's not someone else where it's going to be $20, $100. I got a card to 75 for like $10. So I stay busy. Roberto Clemente is my number one PC. Roberto Clemente. Bernie Williams, Jeter, Yankees, post-war Hall of Famer. So I stay busy. Hall of Fame autographs. But just if you know what's important to you, your values, your boundaries. I know a lot of people get off my lawn, guy. Some of the OGs don't like where the hobby's going, but how can you hate it when, there's money in the hobby? People looking into, I think it's more of a monopoly. That's my biggest issue, that there's one entity trying to take over everything. And I think, I'm from America. I like competition. And that's why I think the 80s and the 90s was the best, because with competition, there's ingenuity, there's pushing the envelope. That's why we had all these dope die cuts and refractors. We don't have that now. We got a lot of laziness, maybe a photo variation here and there, but just a lot of lazy stuff going on, especially with like the Panini relics. I think that's more because they're drowning, because Fanatics is really taking over and they're desperate. But like the jersey memes, and it's just terrible. But like I said, stay in your lane and you'll be all right with whatever you do, especially in today's hobby.
Figure out what your lane is, stay in it. But listen, I will also, I'll throw a little wrench into that, Lou, just a little one, because even as a very experienced collector myself, I have my lanes, plural. I have my lanes, but I also like to look outside of them and find something new, so I can find new lanes. Because if I only collected one thing forever, I think I would get bored. And I'm willing to let myself, move on from things and get into new things, because tastes change. We just find other more interesting things, or whatever it might be. I kind of always say, like, I will allow myself to fall out of love with something, move on from it. And, even when I was just in the LCS in Arizona the other day, and I picked up 3 cards that were not on my want list. Now, they were cheap enough where it wasn't going to, take me away from my priorities. And I didn't need to practice creative neglect against those cards. They kind of came in through, got around that. But how do you feel about that, Lou, in terms of, you say stay in your lane? I think a lot of us say that, but do we mean it completely? Or do you also advise maybe newer collectors to, but be open to new things too?
Of course. I mean, the beauty about this is you can always go back. You know what I'm saying? Like today, I was watching the Ravens game. Lamar Jackson, like, I was a Randall Cunningham guy growing up. Loved Randall Cunningham. Lamar Jackson is Randall Cunningham, Michael Vick, and Dan Marino had a baby. You got Lamar Jackson. It's going to be a 3-time MVP. If he wins the Super Bowl, I mean, he's probably the most talented quarterback, aside from Josh Allen, in the league. Pat Mahomes has the trophies, but he can't touch Lamar Jackson. The moment this cat wins the Super Bowl, it's a wrap. And so I was already looking at Prism rookie cards for Lamar Jackson. Of course you could fall. What I mean is, like anything else, you got to have, I'm not going to get all preachy, but you got to have a foundation, if you will. My foundation is Roberto Clemente, Yankees, Hall of Famers. But I will deviate if I see something cool, Yeah. There's nothing saying this is how it is and this is what it should always be, because like anything else, there's an evolution to anything. The more you learn, the more your knowledge expands, your horizons grow. That's why I always tell my kids, always read, don't be afraid to learn more, expand. What I'm saying is, by staying in your lane, you can't buy everything. You'll be drowning.
Mm-hmm.
So what I mean is, know what you like, go after what you like, but that doesn't mean you can't find new loves.
Yeah. That exactly. I think that makes really perfect sense to me. Exactly with that. Bob Boozle, though, gets this one wrong. He says, in the Ferrari or Jaguar switching 4 lanes, Jeremy Lee with a top down screaming money ain't a thing. Yes, he is screaming money ain't a thing. Otherwise, I'd be buying everything I saw out there, and I'm just not doing that. I want to just go to some comments, because I've got a several selected here. So I'm going to do that now, if you guys don't mind. Dan's Vintage said, I met Lou at the YouTube get together and he introduced himself to me. What a nice man. Yeah, I mean, you guys can tell he is a great guy. Bob Boozle says, Lou Rock needs a trapdoor in his card room to cleanly discard the non-collectors. Iowa Dave, your wife got you a Campanella. Dang, mine got me a sweater. Yeah, I think we're all feeling that way, Dave. Mookie Chilson says, that's not a slap in the face. That's a kick in Lou's rocks. And that's kind of how I saw that myself as well, because I could feel it for you, Lou. And again, you got to go watch Lou's video, because he really does talk it through and let you know just how, and it was a lot more closer in time, like chronologically, to the event. So you're getting the more of the raw emotion. Now you've processed it. You've talked to this friend of yours. You kind of moved past it, which is the way to go, right? for
But
sure.
honestly, the video helped me. It was cathartic, talking it out. I'm telling you, it was almost like a little quick therapy session because I just had to talk to someone, and
for sure
it helped.
And that's what that's what the community can be for, right? Bink Scott says, don't tell people how to collect. That's day one stuff. Right on. I totally agree with Bink Scott. Steve Clifton says, for some people, it's just easier to tear down than to lift up. That's society today, though, right? Of course, he's right. Unhappy people can't just be happy for others. They want you to wallow in their space to make themselves feel better about being unhappy. It just goes to show, like, misery loves company, right? Found Treasure says, bad situational awareness and filter. I think that's well said. Bob Boozle said, the first thing a lot of people ask when they find out what I collect is, what is your most valuable card? I was set up at a card show today, and I had these young kids coming up, and the first question they asked me was, what's the most expensive card in your showcase? What's the most expensive card? That's what they wanted to see. These kids were, because where I was set up was at a neighborhood rec center that has hockey rinks. So it's there, all these kids are there playing hockey, and then they come check out the cards. And that's what these kids were wondering. What's the most expensive card? Not, do you have any Calgary Flames cards or any Wayne Gretzky's or Sidney Crosby's or whomever, Vince Carter's? No, it was all about what's the most expensive card. Foul Ball says, I have a house, an RV, and a Corvette. I can spend my money how I want. Of course you can. Vintage Oddball says, my non-collecting friends are more interested in learning about my YouTube channel than the cards I own. That I experienced some of that myself, and check out Vintage Oddball cards on YouTube, everybody. Logan Ward, my friends always ask me how much my cards are worth. I tell them I have no idea. I collect because I love cards. I have to wonder, though, Logan, like, what's the response? Because that's not going to satisfy them. They're still going to want to know what they're worth, right? Like, it's, I throw that out there sometimes too, but I know it's not going to satisfy the people asking. They're going to dig deeper, and then I'm going to have to come up with something, or I'm just going to say, like, a lot, just, it's like, it's more than I don't want to tell you. I'm not going to show you my 1040 or my, up here in Canada, my T4, like, just, or W-2, I guess in the States they're called, right? Your income slips. Yeah. And Brett Miles says, I like the idea of lanes, but a confident driver knows how to navigate the roads, all of the different roads out there. That's a pretty cool comment there as well.
I like that one.
Okay. Lou, any response to any of that stuff that we just looked at?
Yeah, well, the thing that tripped me up, because I've known this guy for a long time, so I felt comfortable telling him how much I paid for cards. Usually when people tell me that, I give them a generic, they all mean something to me, or, some cards are worth more than others. I really mess people up when, and it's good for my wife, because my casket card is really a cheap card. It's the first Clemente I ever got. So when people tell me my most valuable card, they have no difference. If they don't know, they don't know cards. So if I show them, this is my most valuable card. It's a 1973 Clemente, $60. But this was the first vintage card I ever received from my mother. I was in 6th grade. It was new. It was a Christmas present. I was learning about Clemente, and my father was all excited because, my father's Puerto Rican, and in my household, Clemente was Willie Mays. And so when I got this card in 6th grade, first off, it was like 91, 92. When I saw the 73, I thought this card was the oldest card in the world. Like, I'm like, oh my God, look at this thing. So, and that's equivalent to getting a card from 2003 right now, which is crazy. Yeah. And, I tell people, to me, this is the most valuable card in my collection because I can never replace it. Those memories. I told my wife this is my casket card because she heard the term casket card. She's like, what is that? And it's the card that you would take with you to the grave. And luckily I told her it's only $60. Everything else you can deal with that that's the headache that you gotta deal with when I'm gone.
Guys, before we keep going, I just read a news headline here that Alexander Ovechkin tonight became only the second player ever to score 20 goals for 20 consecutive seasons. Only Gordie Howe did that as well. So that's a pretty big deal.
I can't believe he's been playing 20 seasons,
20 years of 20 goals a year so far for Alex Ovechkin. So really, really amazing stuff right there. Okay, guys, we have another guest who is in the back room. We're gonna be. I see you there. I see you there, young Cage. We're gonna bring you guys on in a couple minutes. Okay. We're gonna bring you guys in a couple minutes. You got a few minutes still, so no rush. Tell your dad to hang tight there. Yeah, I see you guys. We're gonna bring you guys on in a couple minutes. I want to finish up here with Cardi C and Lou Rock before we bring you guys on. But and so okay. I also wanted to. I'm going to destroy this one PSA 10 card that I found on eBay the other day. I'm going to get to that. I promised Instagram that. It's on our thumbnail for tonight. We're going to get to that. Maybe we'll wait for Cage to come on for that one. Okay, Chris, Cardi C, the smarter collector. We talked about creative neglect. We talked about a lot of things. There was another post you did called the Scarcity Index, which I thought was really interesting. Can you explain? And the reason I thought is interesting because I've talked a lot over the years about, the difference between scarcity and rarity, and I use it to guide my own collecting. And then you put a framework around this thing that I was thinking about, but didn't even realize I was thinking about it. And you put a framework on it, really beneficial, I think. Can you explain what the Scarcity Index is? And if it's top of mind for you, I hope it is right now. I don't mean to put you on the spot. And just to leave people, and I want Lou to hear it and Joe as well, and of course the audience. Let's get you to explain the Scarcity Index.
Yeah, so the Scarcity Index is a metric to track how scarce a card is. Pretty straightforward. The formula is how many times that card sold within a particular period divided by the total pop count. So if it's a modern card that's out of 50 or something, your total population is 50. And then you take the number of sales within a given period. Maybe it's a year, maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 6 months. You can pick whatever period you want based on how frequently it transacts. But what you can do is you can calculate how scarce it is, how frequently it transacts. For any accountants out there, it's like similar to an inventory turnover. Out of the entire population of this card, how often does it sell? And I had heard, he's on Instagram at Low Pop Poppy. I heard him talk about this on the Stacking Slabs podcast. And I thought of the cards that are highly desired that seem rare, but they aren't scarce. So you're like Champ Ticket Brady, your PSA 10 86 Fleer Jordan, some of like the Mahomes NT RPAs. Like we all know the pop on those, but it seems like they're in every single, they're a headline card in every single like premier or golden elite auction.
I see you, Cage.
How rare is it really? Or how scarce is it really? And if that's something that matters to you, like it's a metric that you should track. You should know what the population is. You should know how the price is trending, and you should know how scarce it is. It can also give you a heads up as to like, hey, this is the one shot I have to get this card. For example, shameless plug, I'm a Nomar Garcia Parra collector. No one has ever seen a Fleer Brilliance 24 karat gold of his. There's supposedly 24 copies, but there's never been one that's publicly surfaced. The scarcity index for that is 0 because no copies have ever sold. You could have cards like that, or you could have cards that have a very low scarcity index, but that's because no one gives a shit about the card. There's a bunch sitting on eBay. We call that float. How many copies are currently available? If they aren't selling and they aren't turning, it just means that nobody wants them. So it's not meant to just be taken like in a silo. You need to use other metrics when you're like assessing, hey, is this a card I want? But yeah,
I think it's a really interesting concept because populations are one thing, print runs are similar and another thing, but they're not always indicative of how accessible a card can be. And that's why I think the scarcity index is really important, because you can have a card like StarQuest Gold from the 90s. There's 100 of them, but you never see them. That's a low scarcity index, right? Whereas there's there are cards out of thousands from the early 90s that you like, the Stanley Cup hologram from Pro Sets numbered at 5,000. You rarely see it. They're out there, but you rarely see them. And then there's some cards that are numbered at 25, and 8 of them are on eBay tonight. sort of thing, right? Like they're just much more available. So I think I really liked that post you made, Chris. It resonated with me. It put a framework around the term float, something that I've referred to a lot in my content. I think it makes a lot of sense. So I just wanted you to share that with the audience, guys. We're going to bring out Cage and Little Cage here in a moment. So Chris, I want to say thank you for coming on. We're going to get you back because you're putting out great content on the smartercollector.com, on the Instagram account. And, I'm just going to tap you on the shoulder every so often and say, hey, man, this post really resonated with me. I think it would bring some value to the audience. Do you mind coming on to the show and talking about it with us? Before you go, though, Michael Stone says, does scarcity index take into consideration supply demand? Can you answer that quickly, please?
Yeah, so supply would be on the float side, and then it definitely does consider demand. Demand is number of sales.
Very well. And Foul Ball says some cards and collectors aren't online, so this theory doesn't work. How do you reply to that, Chris?
No metric's going to be perfect. There's a flaw because we can't track in-person sales. So it's just a limitation that we got to accept, and we can use it. It's not going to tell the full story, but I think it's an 80-20 version of it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think it's fair to say it doesn't work. I think it's fair to say it's not perfect, but really what metric like that would be, especially with all these different platforms to buy things on. So I think that's great stuff right there. Okay, Chris, thanks again for coming on. We'll have you back for sure.
Great.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Okay. Lou, you get to stick around for a bit still while we bring Cage on, and we'll get some thoughts with Cage. We'll get you involved in all that too. Are you good, or is it getting late for you?
Nah, brother, I wasn't lying. I had an energy drink. I'm straight.
All right.
I'm good.
All right. So we're gonna keep you on. All right. We're gonna bring on Big Cage and Little Cage. What's going on, Cages? How are you guys?
What's up, guys? I got my energy drink here too. Lou, I don't know, man. We got to start asking about how you're spending your money. I mean, I got a whole bunch of questions. I don't think you should be spending it the way you are. And I was fun listening to the conversation. It's funny. I actually, I'm happy we had a couple extra minutes in the green room because I ran and I got some cards because, one of the things you guys were talking about, the younger generation coming up to your table saying, what's the most expensive card? What do you have in there? And I actually said to Little Cage here, I said to Ian, I said, well, what's your favorite card? And I went and got some of them. And you want to hold one of them up or two of them up? So I thought he was going to say, some Wemby or some crazy thing. So he goes and he grabs these two. Now, what you're looking at that's a Tyrese Maxey and a Devontae Smith. Where'd you get those?
I got them at the Philly card show.
Philly card show, right? We met those guys.
We went backstage and we met Devonta Smith and Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese, we had to wait 2 hours,
yeah,
3 hours.
We waited until he was done with all his photo ops and that kind of stuff. We were hanging out backstage. Devontae Smith was my favorite little fun story.
He was the funnest.
While we were hanging out at the show, Ian, we were kind of behind the scenes and we were opening up old wax boxes. We were handing them out to the players. 89. I like 89 Fleer to try to, find a Griffey or maybe a Ripken. The FF, card. We were opening an 89 Donruss box, and I think it is a Warren Spahn puzzle. The little baseball. He used to come with a puzzle inside the pack, and Ian was putting the puzzle together. And Devontae Smith walks up behind him and asks him, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm building a puzzle." Like he was,
I didn't even know who it was. It was just a random guy backstage.
He's like, "They got a puzzle," and then he signed the card for him, which was pretty cool. And he's got a whole bunch here. Obviously it's in Philly. You got like Dallas Goedert. He walked up to him. He got him to sign a card, and it's cool stuff because. There's not enough of this. And I got to tell you, just as a pause, I'm not a huge in-person auto guy. I don't buy a lot of in-person autos. I've kind of made my, my feelings known about even vintage cars that have the dad.
But Joe Drelich does it for you.
Joe Drelich is the best. Joe's the man. In Philly takes care of it. Everybody, you got the whole autos and the whole deal. So, and at the Chantilly show.
Yeah,
so,
Chantilly,
but it's less about the autos. It's cool because he didn't know who Chuck Liddell was, but I had to introduce him to him and get the Iceman signature. So, it's cool. I think we have to add a little more of that into the narrative, into the storytelling, right? The experiences, the these are cards he's never going to sell. We got a sheet of, like in-person autos, you hang on to them and you don't move them, even though they're not the most expensive cards at the table, So I just wanted to throw that one in there.
Having Ian with you, going back there, meeting the athletes, it's a casual scene. It's fun. I mean, it's Farm League says you can't put a value on experiences. Love that story. That's a great story for you, Ian. Like, are you think, Ian, you're going to remember that until you're until you're way old like your dad?
Damn, he got you on that one.
He did get me. Randy's old, but he looks good. See, so that's what it is. He gets to make fun of me.
The one thing I'll probably remember is when Tyrese Maxey palmed my head as like a basketball.
We took a picture. And he grabbed his head. He palmed his head like a ball. I mean, everybody's
also,
so nice.
The thing is, you don't realize how big these people are from just watching them on a screen. These guys are like 6'6", 6'8". They're tall.
Devontae Smith actually was smaller than I thought he was going to be, but like Dallas Goedert was huge. Basketball
George Niang.
George Niang.
I haven't heard of.
Oh, it's good. It sounds like you had a great. Time. That's really cool. Cage, I want to get your thoughts on a topic, if I may. I'm going to change the topic right now, and I know we haven't talked about this yet tonight, so we'll get Lou and Joe's thoughts as well. But on the thumbnail, I think I accurately represented this thing as Panini's. How did I put it? The bait and switch patch scandal, right? With these jersey pieces not being the right player who the card. Now, my thoughts are that if there's a piece of jersey on a card that the hobby expects that, and the customers expect that jersey to be somehow related to the player on the card, not some other player. What's your take on that? Do you feel that Panini and people are now, we've seen a lot of people are, and Lou, you've seen this too. I'm guessing you mentioned it earlier. People are taking off these jerseys, looking to see whose jersey was this really. And it's a different player that played for that team, however many years before. Yeah. I think it's a scandal. I think it's terrible. I hate it. I think it's complete BS. And but unfortunately, I think it's maybe more prevalent than we'd like it to be. So
listen,
what are your thoughts,
one of those things, right, where it would be easy for them to have not got caught up in it, because I've seen the videos of it, right? We've all seen them a bunch of times, right? It's, somebody pulls a card of some. They're not going to do this with like a really valuable guy, but like they'll pull like a quarterback, I don't know, like a Stetson Bennett Rams card or something, right? And they'll grab the tweezer and they'll pull the jersey piece out of it, or they'll rip the whole card out or whatever it is, and behind it is somebody from the Rams who is like the third string tight end, and it says their name right on the back of the little patch.
We had
right?
one of those before.
We did. Yeah.
It was in a winter box. We pulled a Leggett.
Yeah.
Thing like a big patch.
Yeah.
Turns out it was some random fourth string O lineman.
So how'd that make you feel?
Okay. I mean, I know it was a fake relic, but like,
see,
you don't,
so I think
you
really
don't
they're
have to make it a
desensitized
different
to
player.
it. Jeremy's kind of pissed off about it. So here's where I think
I am too. I'm not saying I'm not.
Here's where Panini goes wrong. Just take the name off the back. You don't give people the, I mean, if there was no name on the back, you would just
take your bait and switch one step further and fully
and hide it. Hide the bait.
The customer. Turn them around.
Hide the bait. Listen, it's funny because I was trying to do a little research on this, just bring it up in an episode as well. And I pulled it looked like triple threads, but it wasn't triple threads. It was it was an old Topps Tom Brady triple threads looking kind of thing. It was a patch auto. You know what the triple thread looked like, with like the three different patches. I think it was 2006. It was called Topps something, but they didn't call it triple threads back then. And it had a sticker auto on it, the whole deal. And I flipped it over and I was expecting it to be, game used or whatever it might be, right? And it wasn't. It was like, this is not tied to anything. It's, no, it doesn't even say like event worn. And people think that's a Panini phenomenon. It's not. That stuff's been going on for quite some time. The difference is Panini goes a step further and leaves the backup to the backup's name on it to really kind of rub it in your face that you're getting it.
My God. Honestly, Jeremy, and Lou was talking about laziness before. That to me is that's like, come on, Panini.
I got to tell you, I don't expect. I mean, if the jersey cards, like I've gone to shows with like a box of jersey cards, a box of relics, like a whole row of them. And you figure, all right, well, I could sell these things, right? They're hits in boxes. And like, I'll offer them to people walking by, like I put them up like $1 box, or like, buy, if you spend $10, I'll give you 20 of them. And people don't even want them, not for 50 cents. So to my honest take on it, and I know this is probably going to piss you and other people off, is it doesn't matter. Like, even if it was the guy, right? Or even if it was event worn of the guy, I mean, like, it's not going to be worth anything. And I know that's not what you're doing it for. I know, but I mean, I don't think people are opening any of these boxes now to get a jersey relic that's actually keep in mind, it's never going to be game worn anyway, unless it's game worn. And then it's going to have some value. Then the box is going to cost some money, but nothing really has that now. So, I mean, to me, sure, you could be mad, but on the list of things we could be pissed off at these manufacturers of cards about, I put this pretty low on it.
Do you? Yeah. I don't put it so low because, and Carvin says, why is this an issue? The card says it's non-player affiliated. That's fair. But you know what? I think you have to take into account the psychology of the customer. And I think that we started off with jersey and relic cards being from that player, whether they wore them in an official game, whether they wore them in a photo shoot, whether they touched them at an event. That's what they set us up to expect. And now they're bait and switching us. I don't care what you say. They're bait. That's why it's an issue, because they are taking advantage of their loose language. They're taking advantage of what they set us up for the first 25 years of relic cards. And now they're saying, you know what? We're just going to throw any piece of fabric in there because you're not going to peel it off to find out anyway what it is. I mean, I just listen. I'm not going to take it any further than this discussion today, though, because all I'm going to do is speak with my wallet. That's all I'm going to do, and how I collect. So I'll have it. I'll express my frustration with it here, my disapproval of it, and I will put on my YouTube thumbnail the Panini bait and switch patch scandal to bring more attention to it, because I think it is a bait and switch patch scandal. But if people don't care that the relic in the card is from a different player, then like that should be on that player's card. Now, or don't just put it in the fine print on the back of the cards and not make an announcement. Like, put out a press release and say, like, tell people that you're doing that. Make it known hobby wide that your relics have nothing to do with your players.
Well, let me ask you something, right? Let me ask you, Jeremy. So a lot of these cards, at least the one video.
Hold on, Cage, 1 sec. I'm sorry, Joe and Lou, please, hang in there. I want to get your thoughts on this. But we'll so sorry, Cage.
Yeah, this will just be 2 seconds, right? And then I guess in comment on this, because is it a distinction or not, right? So the video that I saw most recently, where somebody was taking it out and saw the different name on the back of it, it was a rookie. I forget who it was, but it was a rookie card. And when they're making these cards, I mean, it's a little different now. They're making 2024 rookie cards in 2027, especially hockey, what you guys get to deal with. But for the traditional rookie cards, you're not going to have the ability to get a rookie, jersey of a player. So does that make it okay? Because that video that I saw, the most recent one, it was a rookie quarterback, I think, and they put in like a tight end's jersey. So what do you want them to do? You want them to put like a college jersey in a pro card? Like, is it okay? Is that different? Is that a level below the bait and switch? They got to put a team jersey in that matches the team of the guy, but they're not going to be able to get an actual pro jersey from a rookie to have it in his rookie card. Does that make it okay? Does that kind of doesn't matter?
Then don't make a card. If you don't have a piece of fabric that associates that player, don't make a card with a piece of relic of that player. That's my position. The other thing about the language is that, like, maybe I'm cutting the companies too much slack, but I always thought that, they're getting really loose with their language just to protect themselves from liability because of mistakes that they're going to make, that kind of thing. Not because they're literally putting it up your hoop when you're buying these garbage relic cards. Now, they to me are absolute garbage. Like, I think it's just a joke. And I think, and I feel bad for the people that are buying them and collecting them or chasing the hits. I get pretty ramped up about this. I'm not a fan of that at all. Now, mistakes are going to be made. I can tolerate mistakes. I really can. But to deliberately just put in some other player's jersey in there and then put on the back of your card that this relic is not associated with anything. I mean, you know, you hear people making the Dick Sporting Good jokes all the time. It's true. It's true. Like you may as well just not put fabric in there. Cage, let's hear from Lou and Joe on this, and then we'll come back to you. Lou, you've been listening. What's going through your head, buddy?
I on the surface, I guess it's not that big of a deal, because to me, the patch cards, it's not even a patch. The swatches are not hits anymore. They haven't been hits for 10 years. What gets me as a consumer, as a hobbyist who's been in this game for a long time, is the dishonesty. Like, why would I ever buy? If you will lie about something as easy as a jersey card, what else are you not telling me? That's the issue I have. I mean, it is so easy for these companies. You guys got to know Pepino. Pepino, great YouTuber, YouTube legend, been doing this for like a decade. He's one of the top groundskeepers for the Dodgers. And he says everything is authenticated. Even from the dirt, they'll hire, the Dodgers would tell them, hey, put 5 buckets of clay and then take it to the MLB authenticator. They're putting holograms on everything. Broken bats. As soon as the bat's broken, authenticate it. And all that stuff is recorded and cataloged. The fact, and to answer Cage's question from earlier, you know, rookie, I was always under the impression with the loose language, you know, it was event worn. I know it's impossible for a rookie to have a game use jersey, but in the photo shoot, he's wearing an NFL jersey. That's why I always imagine it was that jersey from the photo shoot in the little patch card. The issue I have also is, aside from the line, the price of wax is still going up, and they're counting these hits. If the prices are going up, how are you putting the 4th-string tight end representing Jaden Daniels? The box is still $300. So I think it's a desperate move. The lack of honesty pisses me off, and I would never. I won't buy from Panini now. I mean, it was already tough sledding because they didn't have, Fanatics just gobbled up all the contracts. They got all the current guys. But even, everyone's in a rush to be first. So they want to get these college kids, and they got that. But that's the issue. They're just rushing to be first, and they're throwing any piece of junk in the card just so they'd be like, hey, first one on the line. Me, I don't always do relics, but when I do, I like the late 90s, early 2000s. Like, you can't tell me that Schmidt isn't sick. It's literally a 1-on-1. But how hard is it to show the actual jersey? On it, it says from a game that was used. And I know in other products they actually have the hologram with the code, like the PSA DNA. Like, this is not hard. It's effort.
Well, it might be hard though, Lou. Logistically speaking, it might be hard, especially with there being so many of them now. So I do think that it is, and I've had conversations about it with card company personnel, that it is harder logistically now than back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when only a few players were getting them in a few packs. Now it's coming out 20 brands. Every brand has it. There's 100 players on the check.
What is that? It's possible. Yeah, I guess logistics. But if you're going to put 20-some products and you're trying to put it, I get it. The product does. If you can't do it, then don't put it in the product. But if you're going to put it,
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. 100%.
The thing is, if the prices keep on going up, I have a video from 2019 before the pandemic, but that season, I'm like, you know what? Let me rip some wax. I didn't want to get a big card. I want to do something different. I had 5 hobby boxes. I had 2017 Stadium Club, 2017 Topps Chrome, 18, 19, all Topps Chrome, Top Series 2. I bought 5 hobby boxes. It was $250. They had autographs, jerseys, and now I can't even get one hobby box for $300. And if I do, it's the one hit is either an autograph or relic. And the likelihood is it's going to be a relic, either manufactured or some BS. It's not even a patch. It's a
and
swatch.
probably just not game worn, which
Yes.
is, to me, if it's not game worn, I don't want it in my collection. I don't have any mem cards in my whole collection that are not certified as game worn. Whether they are or not is another question, but certified that way. Let's
just cutting corners and laziness. I mean, you're charging this much money, put some effort in the product. I'm going to put
some
money
integrity. Put some integrity in the product, right, Lou?
That's all I want.
Right. Integrity. Yeah, Cage, Ian, integrity. All right, let's hear from Joe on this, and then we're going to go back to Cage. Joe, you've been listening patiently. Take it in. Let's hear your very level-headed synopsis on this situation.
Well, I first want to acknowledge Ian staying up past his bedtime. Thanks for joining us, Ian. And I know
Saturday, baby.
He shows the Diet Coke.
Yeah. No, I mean,
good fathering, Cage. Good fathering.
I think it's, what would the word be? Panini thinks they're being slick, but at this point, it's not even that they're being slick. I mean, this is where education is important. You need to be able to read, simple fundamental skills. Like Carvin was saying, it is actually there. So, I mean, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, Jay Lee, but I do think it's been out there long enough where we have been, provided the information. As someone that's very attuned to language, I think the ambiguity is a little frustrating sometimes because I don't always quite know what even they're saying, and I don't know if it's an umbrella for having all manners of event worn, or somebody had it in a game. But where I go as a collector, that's kind of what I can speak to, is where I go as a collector is I start looking at where are those spots that we can trust, like early flawless, early NT, and I hope we can trust that, so there's still that credibility issue. I think Lou was bringing up. It's like, well, they've kind of shown to some degree that maybe they can't be totally trusted, but I want to trust flawless. I want to trust early NT, and I want to trust that what they said in those iterations early on was true. So that's where I kind of, that to me is the opportunity in all of this, is to find and locate those cards, like Messi. Match-worn Messi cards are really important. When you find a GOAT and it says match worn, there's a lot of Messi out there that's just, this, that, and the other. But if you can find a match worn Messi card, that means all the more in this new context. So that's kind of where I go, is like, okay,
there aren't any. No playing days jersey Messi patch autos. The only thing you're going to get is a flawless 2016 Soul of the Game, where it's a piece of his shoe. And now you can get Dynasty that came out this year. But you might be able to make an argument that some of the PSG patches were from playing days in PSG, but the Barcelona patches are definitely not playing days patches. And he's playing, but he's playing from Miami now. Who knows what Topps will do? But yeah, I love what you're saying, man. Joe, you're 100% right. It makes the hunt so much better. I mean, I'll take this two ways. Number one, Lou, I love what you did pulling up the Mike Schmidt, right? Because one of the things that Jeremy is talking about here is vote with your wallet, right? Like, if you really think that Panini is pulling the wool over on you on this, and it's not even event worn, it's not even something that is, any way associated with the guy. Well, you talked about getting, hobby boxes for $50, right? Not only do you not buy a hobby box now because you're going to get jobbed on it if that's the way you feel, but do a little bit of what Joe was saying. Go back and hunt and buy a card from when they did matter. Buy a card from when it was game used. And for $50, I mean, I just did it while I was waiting, while you were talking. Here's a 2005 Upper Deck Trilogy, Mike Schmidt, game used bat, game used jersey with, a seam in it, you name it, listed on eBay for $49.99 or best offer. It's got his autograph, got material, got the whole deal for what you used to pay for a hobby box. If you're a Schmidt guy, go ahead and do that. I mean, it's what Joe's talking about, the hunt, go look. But what you're talking about too is, don't give them your money now. You can go back and get real game used stuff. You can go back and get other cards. The second way I'll take this though is I'm not gonna concede the point that it matters. I don't know too many people who buy product for relic hits, and I also don't really believe that it being associated with the player as I understand the insult of it, like flipping it over and seeing somebody else's name on the card. That's in your face. It's almost like they're basically telling you we don't care. Like we're taking a shortcut. We don't care what it is. You name it. But does it really matter if it's an event worn piece? Like here, what's the best example you can come up with of a card that you know has nothing to do with the player, even though he may have touched it?
The few Terror box we opened.
Luca.
Oh, yeah, Luca. I forgot what you
The
told me
National
to
Treasures,
stay.
right? The Luca National Treasures. Like that Luca National Treasures RPA. You guys know this card, man. I don't know, big basketball guys, right? But that card sold for 6 figures. That card is like, a huge card. And it's an 88 jersey. And they gave him a number 88 jersey. They probably put it on him or had him touch it or whatever it is. We have, wipe some sweat off your brow with it. That's now event used, right? And that card, he wore jersey number, he doesn't wear 88, but they gave him an 88 this way that there's more patch pieces. There's more color on it, the 88 jersey.
They did that in hockey too. They did that with hockey too.
So, I mean, is that somehow better because you can't flip it over and see someone else's? You don't see,
I think it is, Cage. I think it is better that it was the right player, the player who's depicted on the card, that it is memorabilia that they were somehow associated with. Now, personally, I don't collect it. I don't care if anyone else does. Like you said, I'll vote with my wallet. I won't collect that for myself. But if anyone else, if it's up their alley, have at her. I'm happy you love what you love. I'm not going to judge you for it, but personally, I hate it for me, and I'm not going to collect it. I'm not going to support it. I'm not going to talk it up either. But that's just me, and that's just the way I approach it for myself. So, I mean, listen, you made the comment earlier too, Cage, like these things aren't worth anything anyway. True. But is that a good enough reason for us to just not, as a hobby, not kind of let the manufacturers know that there is a segment of us who don't want that? Like we're not gonna value it at all because they value it. They call it hits. They have them serially numbered in many cases. They're hits to them. They have to be because all the breakers need hits. It's all about the hits. It's all about getting excited about a jersey card, even though the jersey card is not associated with anything at all. It's from Ian's little league team. That could be, and listen, I'd rather that than some no-name player. I'd rather be some kid I know. My friend's kid would be better for me, right? But like it's that kind of thing. So
what's up?
I want to say something. So let's say I go to Bleaker Trading right now. I wear this hat.
He gets it in.
I wear this hat, right? Micah Parsons shows up, touches the brim of my hat, puts it down. Is that Micah Parsons' hat? No.
Yeah, exactly.
It's my hat. It's what Panini is doing right now.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make sense.
No, I agree with that. I just want to say, Carvin says too many commercials, Jay Lee. Yeah, that's YouTube doing that, guys. That's not me doing that, I don't think. But the other thing is get YouTube Prime, guys. Yeah, I've had it for years now. It's amazing.
Yeah, he's calling you poor, Carvin. He's saying you poor.
I will encourage you guys, get YouTube
Hey,
Prime.
don't tell me how to spend my money, Jeremy.
Yeah, right. No, this is a recommendation. I haven't seen a commercial on YouTube in years since I got myself YouTube Prime. It is an unbelievable service, actually.
But to get back to the relics, I remember, I was in college, so I had to be like 98, 99, reading my Tough Stuff magazine where they had a Lou Gehrig bat, a Clemente jersey, and I'm like, are these mother truckers going to cut up a piece of history, this unique piece of history? I was outraged. And, these companies, they just see dollar signs. I'm like, man, for money to go and destroy one-of-a-kind items. And everything changed when I got a back card of Clemente. Because in real life, I would never be able to drop, at that time, now it's 6 figures, to get a piece like that of history. Now I own a piece of Clemente, a piece of Ruth or Gehrig. It's almost like fractional ownership. People always talk about fractional ownership. We always had fractional ownership in these relic cards because that was the real deal. easy authentication, picture of it on the back. That's why it stings a little bit now. Like Lil Cage, it's like anything else. Every generation is different.
Yep.
And I'm from the old generation where I remember when they mattered and they meant something and they were truly hits. Now, I don't even buy hobby boxes like I used to. If I buy product at all, it's to buy or to acquire like a Paul Skeens. Like, I'm not going to go out and buy Paul Skeens because this banana's crazy right now. But if I buy a couple packs, a blaster here and there, maybe I get a nice little parallel. But again, I'll get that rookie card that way. I'm not really trying to get the only reason I even have relics that have the not event worn, not to a particular, because I got it in a blaster or some BS like that. It's not because I'm purposely going out, unless that's like someone I was player collecting, like Gleyber Torres, which is unfortunate because now he's a Tiger. But you know what I'm saying? Like, relics mattered, and that's why seeing that stuff now, like I'm done with Panini. I mean, they don't have any of the guys locked up, none of the current guys. To me, they're on life support right now in terms of baseball. And now they're doing this.
Panini's not making their money off of us anymore. You got to put yourself in their shoes, and it's not going to change your opinion, right? It's like you're still going to hate them. You might even hate them more after I tell you this, right? The people buying the Panini boxes, and Jeremy, you're right. They got to have the hits. But people buying Prism or people buying these boxes, they're buying it for the color. They're buying it for, the number parallels. Those are the hits, like for lack of a better way of saying it, the Panini like Prism box, the autos don't even matter. You know what I mean? They're trying to get, the relics have been relegated to a real lower tier of cards.
Just get rid of the jersey card. Just get rid of the little.
You guys are right. And I'm seeing signs of it in the chat too. And maybe I'm too old school. Maybe I come from a generation that, just wants things to have meaning. I just want things that I'm collecting to have meaning. Maybe that's just me. Maybe, there was a comment somebody said in the chat that, to them, the memorabilia is part of the design, the decorative aspects of the card. I agree with that. To me, that's why I have nothing against manufactured patches, because they are not pretending to be something else. Yes. They are manufactured. They are something totally different. So they are not impersonating a real patch like like these other ones are. Manufactured patches, design elements, no problem with them for me. A lot of people hate them. But it's this other thing. So maybe I am a little bit old school and being a little bit too much like get off my lawn when it comes to this. And maybe I need to open my mind and be like, you know what? If the hobby is going to accept these napkin-y patches or pieces of jerseys that have nothing to do with the player, even though I think we expect them to be in many cases, despite what the back of the card says, maybe that's just me needing to move forward in the hobby. Not that I'm going to ever put my money or give or like those cards will never earn a spot in my collection ever. No, I can pretty much until the day I die, they will not earn a spot in my collection. But that other people are okay with them and maybe collect them even. I mean, that's have at her. Have at her. You're helping keep these card companies in business, and I'm thankful for that. I mean, I'm okay with that. Yeah, I don't know. So with that, since no one's jumping in, I want to go to some comments here, guys. Lou, Cage, Ian, welcome to stick on as long as you guys want to and are able to. Okay, going back in time, Logan Ward, when someone asks him how much his collection is worth, he just throws out some random digit. I think that's hilarious. Hockey said, if someone continues to buy cards, does that mean they aren't satisfied with their collection? Is there a point where people are happy with their collection and no longer need to add to their collection? Now, that is a very deep question. I think it goes deeper than this. We might have to save that one for another time, but I thought that was an awesome comment, by the way. Yeah. Do you want to say anything about it, Lou? Can you take half a minute and address it? You're welcome to.
I mean, there's a lot of layers to it. If I stop collecting, will I be satisfied? I'm satisfied. I love my collection. I'm up here all the time. I'm watching games, just being around it. I'm happy. But the beauty about this hobby is there's always something. There's always something to chase. I mean,
the chase.
Oh my gosh. The chase is the chase is almost as good as acquiring. Like I love, like I said, the yellow top loaders. When I see that, I start to salivate. I'm like, what am I about to uncover? A lot of times it's a bunch of 89 tops or 90 Fleer, but sometimes you find that diamond in the rough, a Pujols rookie, a Jordan insert, a Kobe refractor. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, and that's why it's just like, that's the addiction for me, the chase. And then acquiring it, displaying it. I have a lot of displays. I rotate a lot. There's so much to it. But if someone told me, like, if I couldn't afford another card, I'll be happy. Or if I had
I think that's a really important thing what you just said there, because it comes also back to like, let's enjoy what we have. It's like human nature. We want to acquire, right? We want to possess things. It's nice to sit back and enjoy what you have, how good we really have it in life. Hearts going out to Los Angeles, of course. Those people are going through some tough times. That's what's important here. If you hear where we are, where we are not, our houses didn't just burn down. Hopefully we are free of other tragedies. Like life is good, let's face it, but enjoy what you have. But as collectors, we want to it's what we do. There's so many cool things out there. We want to always find something to collect and chase, collect if you were brought up that way. I think those are great comments. Lou, appreciate that. We're going to keep on going. I want to do some more stuff. Here's a question that came for you, Cage, from Hockey. What are your thoughts on hobby content creators pivoting to TCG in order to stay relevant in the card collecting content space? I must say, I haven't noticed that. I don't know what Hockey is getting at. Cage, if you've addressed this elsewhere, are you familiar with it?
Listen, this is a small space, right? And I've said it probably 50 times in my last, year, 2 years worth of content, that we're going to have less and less content creators just doing solely sports cards. And it's because, it's going to be people who were here doing it before the last crazy run up. It's people who are doing it even though they're not being paid to do it. It's people who have, risen to the top of the game here. Yourself, Jeremy, obviously, and the rest of the folks who came in thinking that it was going to be a quick buck. They were going to sign up sponsors and, make some money doing this. That, they almost all have disappeared. It's not just TCG though. I mean, there are bigger pockets. There are other avenues to go. I mean, we see a lot of hobby content creators pivoting into sports betting, sports card radio. They just talked about it. Yeah, they talked about it last night, that pivot. I mean, Seablez is, he's got the algorithm and he's giving us sports bet picks. And I mean, it's, it's a bigger audience to chase and, way to make money in. The hobby, it's not really forgiving. And I'll tell you why I think some of the content creators went over to TCG, Hockey, just to kind of answer. Right now, I think that our space, the sports card space, you have almost like as big a divide as you've ever had. You have sort of like modern breaker mentality on one side. You put your repackers, your breakers, then you have kind of like the collector universe on the other side. And there really is a huge gap between that. And, the content creators who came in, who were able to make content, myself included, right? When I was doing the show with Andrew, we used to do like, a play. Like, hey, here's a card I'm looking at. Here's a card grab as many Pete Alonso, PSA 10 rookies as you. It was fun in that. There was a chase in it. You saw the card go up in value and the whole deal. That middle where people were able to play and talk. It was easy when every single card you bought was going up. That's not the case now, and you don't have the breaker mentality and the craziness in the TCG space. So people making content about that, you have a, long-standing collector base there. You don't have the same kind of like gambling mentality per se there. So I can understand the pivot to that as well. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
Well, I think it answers Hockey's question. I if I don't have interest in someone actually said to me in DMs yesterday, I got a DM from somebody saying, it was after they watched the sports card radio from Vegas special they did on Thursday night, I believe.
Yep.
And he said to me, they're moving to sports betting and these other guys are going into Pokemon. Maybe you should move into Pokemon. I'm like, why would I move into Pokemon? I mean, I may as well move into peanut butter and jam. Like, I don't give a like. Well, right? It's a good. Right, that's a good space. Right? I mean, why would I move into Pokemon? Like, I dabbled. I gave it some attention 4 years ago. And bought 3 cards. Realized, what am I doing? Not for me. Like, I'm embarrassed to say I even did that. Like, anyway, I don't understand why a sport like Lou Rock is not going into Pokemon, right? Like, unless his daughter is into it. And then I completely understand. If it's a way to bond with your kid, have at her. Like, and it's not like you don't need my permission. I'm just saying I personally wouldn't do it. But if my daughter wanted to talk about Pokemon with me, 100%, I'm going to get into Pokemon with my daughter.
I could pivot into Pokemon, Jeremy, but only because I've been eating a lot over the winter break, and I have the cleavage for it to be a Pokemon content creator.
Okay. All right, let's say hello to Colin Murray. This comment here, I really like this from LGC because he did some research. Memorabilia defined equals objects that are collected because they are connected with a person or event that you want to remember. Connected with, I think that is an important part. That comment made sense to me. Foul Ball says, I'm not a fan of collectors who grade, but what can I do? Relics are the same. I understand I understand not being a fan of like grading or relics, but what if that collector, Foul Ball, is a friend of yours or someone you like? Would you not? Are you not? It's like I think you got to separate the action from the person. Like you can be a fan of the person because they're a good person, but maybe not what they do because it's not for you. But I mean, I'm nitpicking, but that's just the way I look at that. USMNT says Jay Lee starting to sound like that guy he was dogging on in the chat earlier. I think there's a distinction that USMNT missed there, because when I was dogging on that guy in the chat, he came in here and said, leave this to the real collectors. I am not saying that I'm any better of a collector because I only want cards with relics that were, associated with the player. I'm not saying that's what I want for myself. If you collect those things, have at her. I'm happy for you. I don't think I'm any better than you at all. I collect what I like. You collect what you like. There's a big distinction between me dogging on a guy who comes into the Sports Cards Live chat room and basically tells us that, leave it to the real collectors, like he's better than us. I don't think I'm better than any collector out there. So I think you missed a pretty important distinction there, USMNT. I think you just missed. Maybe you just don't understand me or know me very well, but you probably don't because I don't know you at all. But I think you missed something there. The Authentic Sports Card Dad is enjoying the guest tonight. Glad you are. Game Time Gallery says manufacturers use ambiguous language for this very reason, to deceive collectors. I believe that. Unfortunately, I think there's liability reasons and deception, and they get to knock off 2 birds with 1 stone with their language on the back of cards. Carvin says we all have to trust the manufacturer. Can just see people laughing at that one, Carv. But I think to a degree we have to take that leap of faith that the manufacturer is telling us the truth. Bob Boozle says President Mangini needs to do something about this at once. Yes,
I'll make a call.
He does. And I like this. Carvin says the commercials are non-SCL or guest affiliated. I hate it. That's a good one, Carv. That's a good one right there. Foul Ball says the manufacturers are all about money. They don't care about collectors. If you're a set collector, they make more sets. Player collector, more parallels. Numbered, they will never stop. I think he's right about that last part. Do they not care about collectors? I think they care about collectors, Foul Ball, but I think they care about the bottom line and shareholder return more than they care about collectors. I'll just put that out there. 1956 Topps guy is in LA, can hear the helicopters, and his cards are helping him deal with the stress. Matthew, we are hoping for you and your homes and your friends and families as well. Farm League, great discussion tonight, guys. Thanks. Michael Stone is appreciating the insight. Carvin Chung wants to do a podcast. Carv, we should talk. All right. I think I got to a bunch of comments there. Get off my lawn, Pikachu. That's right, Bob Boozle. That's right. Zach Nygat from Collector Creative. Check him out. Happy New Year to you as well. Okay. Guys, Joe, I want to do round table comments. I want to take a look at this PSA 10 card that is not a PSA 10. I got some qualifiers to put on that as well. Joe, lots of stuff since you've spoken. What's going through your mind?
I mean, I think just to like put a bow on this convo about relics or, you know, patches. I think it's emerging because new collectors come into the space and have some surprises. I think many of us who've been in the space long enough already understand this. So, you know, it just gets, like I said before, like back to education, back to people, you know, having awareness, and all of us, you know, hopefully being stewards, understanding that when new people come into the space, we want them to have a good experience because that helps everybody. So that'd be my final thoughts on that.
I think that's fair. I think that's exactly right. We want people to know what they're getting, and I think there's deception and liability, you know, protection for them. Like I said, two birds with one stone there. Lou, any final thoughts on all these topics?
Yeah, it's disheartening. Like you said, I'm aware. I'm not gonna spend any more money with Panini, because if they go on lie about the little things like that, look, the language was there for liability, but I think it evolved into deception. They're like, it's like one of those things. They went to their lawyer, like, this is what it says. Can we get away with this? And they're like, yeah, of course. Yeah. And I see Lil Cage. I'm a family man, you know what I'm saying? And I enjoy teaching the next generation, like my daughter, Bob. So when he tells me the story, you know, of meeting the basketball players, getting the autographs, those are memories he's going to take with him. So for him to come into a hobby where it's already starting with the lies, deception, you know, it's up to Pops to steer him in the right direction, what to do. And those are the pillars and foundation that he will take with him into the future. You know what I'm saying? So it just sucks that, you know, the deception for me, for young, because if he didn't have his father collecting with him, he might be dissuaded. Maybe he just bought a box for the first time. If it was anyone else, he's like, hey, Mom, let me get a box of cards. Gets a box, hits this relic, and he discovers that it was fake. He might not want to collect again. If that makes sense, you know what I'm saying?
It does. I think you. That was a great bow to you and Joe both really helping to put the bow on that discussion. Cage, over to you for kind of final thoughts on that.
We'll sign off. I'll let the kid go to sleep. It's funny because I'll do a Seinfeld episode on it, right? We'll wrap it all up and tie it up. The best comment you got is anybody ever really happy with their collection, right? Are you satisfied with what you have? And one of the things that Lou talked about was the chase. And, you know, Joe talking about flawless cards and early flawless and early national treasures. What's one of my favorite things and why I will never be happy with my collection, sometimes take losses selling to move into something else, is my favorite thing about cards and the space is the research. And I think that's the biggest part of the chase, right? Finding something that I maybe didn't know about, or finding something that now has some more significance than I realized at the time that it came out. And I think if you really want to tie all that together here, is maybe what we're seeing here is, you know, we've talked about junk wax, junk slab. Maybe now we're at a period of junk memorabilia, or junk relics, or junk jersey cards, or junk patch cards, whatever the hell you want to call it, right?
Maybe we're just in the junk era.
Just junk. But really, if it's junk, well, then we as collectors who have been here for a while, who educate folks watching this and make content, now have to say, all right, well, if everything's junk now, let's do some research into what's not junk. Let's find the sets. You know, Carvin is in the chat. Why do you think that Exquisite has seen this exponential rise in value in the last couple of years? Part of it might be shill bidding. Part of it might be stupidity. Part of it might be money laundering. I have no idea. But I think part of it might also be that you're seeing this disdain that Jeremy is throwing out there for the modern relic card that's not associated with anything. But you know that if you go back to this obviously very expensive set that was made, but then maybe people can find other sets that weren't as expensive. Lou's Mike Schmidt card as a good example. Joe talking about early NT and early flawless cards. These are the things that I think that make the space fun. So we can take this negative, this deception, if you will, you know, this hey, and teach the kids. By the way, don't throw $350 into a hobby box now. Take that money and let's do a little research, spend a little bit of time. You don't have to go into the gambling breaking machine. Spend some time, do some research, find a card of a guy who look at the back of it. Start researching. Get the checklist. See what cards have game used of that guy, and maybe those will be the cards that become the next exquisite with a huge run up if you're interested in that kind of stuff. So that's where my brain goes with all this. I hope it makes sense.
No, it does. It's just good. Listen, open to all sorts of perspectives, and I've got my approaches and theories on things, and that's based on my experiences and what I've seen in life and in the hobby. Someone, could, and I feel like I learned something tonight. I learned that, maybe the greater hobby is okay buying, opening up packs and getting cards with meaningless relics in them that have nothing to do. I didn't realize that people were so okay with that. And I'm not okay with it personally, but I've learned that, and that's going to soften me up a little bit. I'm still going to talk with my wallet. I'm still going to express how much I don't like that, but I'm going to understand now that maybe the hobby is okay with that. And I hope that I can still,
the last relic card we hit was out of a holiday Topps box, and it was a Randy Arozarena Santa Claus patch. We're under no misconception that Randy Arozarena was wearing a Santa Claus outfit that they cut up and put in this card. It's just one of those things. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things. We'll leave you with that. Jeremy, thanks for having us on. I'm
Ian,
going to let you go to sleep. What do you want to say?
So I have an
I
opinion.
thought you were going to sleep.
Well, I am.
All right, go ahead.
I have an opinion on this argument too. It's how long have you been doing it, and how do you feel about it? Like, if you feel good about the times you've had, you made good memories. If you met Tyrese Maxey and Devonta Smith at the back of a card show, you might want to keep doing this, even though there's been some bad times where you pull a George S. Niang out of 99 auto from a $300, $400 triple threads box from personal experience. But
how do we make better experiences for somebody like you when most people are not going to the back of the show and find that, and most people, like Lou is saying, are buying hobby boxes and getting a relic that has nothing to do with a player, and they're spending $200 on a hobby box and pulling a piece of crap? When that happens to you, don't you sometimes say, I don't want to buy cards anymore, buy stock?
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Change the focus. Maybe come back in 20 years when Nike goes off or Tesla goes off.
No, see that he's
for $500. For $500.
Listen, you're right though, and you guys, you're hitting the nail on the head. Here's your target audience for the next stuff, and we open every Friday, and more often than not, he tells me we shouldn't have put our money in this box. We should buy stock. We should buy Tesla. Yeah. He tells me we should buy this. So, it does hit, Jeremy. You're not completely off.
Well, he's wise beyond his years. I got to say, that was a very mature comment there, Ian. It was great having you on with your pops tonight. Cage, thanks for jumping on, guys. We'll let you go. And Joe and Lou, I'm going to ask you guys to hold down the fort here for me for about 2 minutes while I've taken down 2 glasses of water, so I got to go do something about that. See you, Cage. See you, Ian. Thank you, guys. I'm going to go fix that problem for a quick minute. I'll be back. We're gonna get into this PSA 10 card I've been talking about. So Joe, Lou, please talk about whatever you want.
All right,
right on.
I got cards I could show. I could show
cards. I'll be right back.
Do it.
All right.
And I like that. Was that Fabric of the Game Leaf certified? The Mike Schmidt one? Because I just sent in a Ricky Henderson that I found from an ungraded one, and I think it was that same one because it showed the jersey and the date of the jersey.
This is 2003 Timeless Treasures.
Oh, Timeless Treasures. Okay. Yep. Oh, they did it too. Yeah, that is sweet. And the actual jersey.
Yeah, and it's dirty. Like you can see, it's dirty. I love it.
Yeah. You wore it.
I do collect basketball. I got this from my wife, who was my girlfriend in college.
Very nice.
She was asking, I think it was for my birthday or I don't know, maybe Valentine's.
Yeah, good centering. Good centering on that.
Yeah, she's like, so what are you looking at? What do you want? I was like, well, I'm about to buy this card, but you can buy it for me and it was $120 when I was in college.
Wow.
And she's like, that's when she started learning. That's when I knew she was a keeper. Because she's like, you want to spend $120 on that card?
Yep.
And it could that conversation could have gone a lot of different ways. I'm like, yeah, babe. Either you could give it to me, I love it, or I'm gonna buy it, I'm gonna love it. She's like, I'll get it for you. And she didn't quite understand, but at that time she loved me and she knew I wanted it. And I got a Bird Magic rookie card. She didn't quite understand, but I've been with this chick coming up on 25 years. Now she understands. My buddy, who is new to the hobby, rips a lot of wax, knows Clemente is my number one PC. And to him, this was not a big deal, but this was a crazy hit. As a 1-of-1 sketch card of Clemente. So he gave me a steal of a deal. He pretty much just wanted to, and that's the thing now. Like, if you break even on these hobby rips, he thinks he's winning. He's like, I just don't want to lose out. So he's like, look, your buddy, if you really want it, bro, I won't even put it on eBay. Give me $80 for it. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, I just want to break even. I don't want to make money on my friend. I'd be happy just breaking even. And that's what he does. So nice. I got a 1-of-1 sketch card of Clemente.
That's beautiful.
Really nice. Really nice card.
But yeah, I had an exquisite because that's what Cage was talking about. This is a Johnny Mize cut auto.
Nice. So what's that numbered out of? 65?
Yeah, 65.
Yeah.
So they had like 65 documents, I'm sure, player contracts, letters. But this is just, I love the ballpoint in blue.
Yeah.
And it's cut nice because, you know, they have a pre-design already. And depending on the document, sometimes you can't see it. Sometimes the name is cut off. So, you know, I take my time. It's my money. You know, it's like I'm not going to put it in a hobby box like I would have back in the day. I just find the cards, you know, you do a little research. You find a set you like. You find a player that you're targeting. And, you know, let someone else spend that money. Rip it. The box back in the day probably costs, you know, if you try to rip something like that today, it's probably $1,000 box.
Right.
I'll buy this card for $150 on the secondary. You know what I'm saying?
So so smart. Be a sharpshooting, I call it. Right. You can just buying the singles you like. You can save a lot of money that way. Yes. Quit Logan Ward. Very acquired skill. I did have to go to the luckily I got indoor plumbing, guys. I mean, pretty fortunate to have that right now, I must say. Brett Miles says, yeah, it's nice when the cut auto fits like a glove for sure. No doubt about like when it's all in the patch window.
Yeah, I
Thanks,
got
guys. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to show you guys a card. I'm going to just share my screen, get your thoughts on this too. But all right, guys. This is not the card that I have an issue with. This is the same card, though. This is a 1989 Topps Joe Sakic rookie card. This is offered by the PSA account on eBay for $7,500 US. This is a PSA 10. This Joe Sakic Topps PSA 10 is a Pop 17. Now, in the history of hockey cards, OPC is usually the more desirable offering. There's two instances where it isn't, in my opinion. One is 1980 and one is 1989. 89 because they ran the presses at OPC. The Topps cards are much tougher to find. And this is a very nice copy. It's a Pop 17, keep in mind. And just for complete transparency, I own 2 of those 17 copies. I've had them for a long time. I was onto it early. I knew it was a underappreciated card. This is one that PSA is offering. I have no idea who consigned it to them or whatever, but this is a very nice copy of the card. You can see, first of all, you zoom out, top to bottom centering, basically perfect, side to side, basically perfect, corners, edges, perfect. To me, this is a PSA 10 Gem Mint copy of and it's one of the 17 copies that are legit 10s, in my opinion. Now let's look at this other copy here. This is also a PSA 10 Topps Joe Sakic rookie card, also offered this is 7,500 Canadian, where this was 7,500 US. Now this seller ended the item because it's no longer available. That happened like hours after I posted on Instagram that I was going to rip to shreds a PSA 10 Gem Mint card. I don't know if that person caught wind of it. I don't know who I do not have any idea who CO-411084 is. But I'm going to destroy this card on here right now. And I'm going to show you why. What's wrong? First of all, you can all see right now, centering.
bottom of the top.
Right? Is that 60, at least 60-40? I don't think so. It's really high, side to side. You've got more border on the left than you have on the right. Now we're just getting started with the issues on this card. Let me blow it up a little bit. The second most obvious thing. Oh no, how do I, come on. Okay. this eBay, sometimes you just can't see what you want to see. There we go. I think
Is that chip?
Come on. There we go. Can you see? I'm pointing to. Can you see this right here?
A little fisheye.
Yeah.
Fisheye, right in the blue. I don't know about you guys, but that's a flaw. That's a flaw in the card. It's a printing flaw. It's print defect, but it's still an issue with the card. And it's a bright, easy to see fisheye. So there's two things. Centering, it's not gem mint centering. It's got that fisheye there. But to me, if you've followed any of when I break down Gretzky rookies, when I do the Fanatics Collect show, the premier auction coverage that I do, you know I talk about registration a lot. Registration being where the four color plates applied in a consistent manner so all the lines matched up, right? That's how you get a card that is either in focus or out of focus. You see shadows on cards. Well, let's take a look at this. First of all, look at the word Topps. It's hard to see, but look at the registration, this trademark symbol here. You can barely see it. It's super blurry. Look at his face. Look at the jersey. Like there's a shadow coming off it.
It's a ghost image. Yeah.
Sorry, Luke.
It's like a ghost image.
It's like a ghost image. Exactly. You can see it on the 8 on the jersey here on the far right. You've got like an extra wrinkle to the number, but just his eyes. If you focus in on his face right here on the left edge of his face, you can see the shadow coming off it. That's registration issue. Go to the good copy. Nice and sharp. Nice and sharp. Look to the right of the 8 on this copy. All you see is a clean edge of the jersey, and then you see the background. You guys looking at that? Let's go back to this one over here. Look at the edge of the 8 on that. It's like there's 2 8s there. Look at the fisheye on the bottom of the eye in Sakic. The bottom of the eye. Another fisheye right there. And then it's harder to see, but there are surface issues as well that may be on the slab. So I'm talking about all this. I listen, those are my issues with this card. Registration, multiple fisheyes, and really crappy centering if we're talking about this being a PSA 10. So a couple things to mention. First off, PSA has a great guarantee. You know, you can like, I don't know for sure, but if I bought this card from somebody and then I said, hey, PSA, could you review this? Is this actually a PSA 10? Is this a gem mint card? If they looked at it and assessed, number one, this is not tampered with, and number two, no, of course, Jeremy, this is not a gem mint card. Are they going to give me my $7,500 back? Maybe. So that's a good thing. The PSA, I respect that. The other thing is that what I just alluded to, there's a chance that this is not an authentic slab. There's a chance that somebody bought this slab, opened it up, took out the real gem mint card, and then put this piece of crap inside of it, and is trying to pass it off as a PSA 10. They're going to take the real gem mint copy, get it slabbed again by PSA, probably comes back an 8 or a 9 this time, so they lose anyway, and are trying to pass this off as a PSA 10 because this serial number is correct. When you go to the PSA app, it comes up as the Joe Sakic 1989 Topps card. You don't have a picture of it because it's, this is from well before Nat Turner took over PSA. So this criticism of this card I am giving right now has nothing to do with what's going on at PSA today. I think PSA is grading a lot tougher right now, and I respect the grades now a lot more than I did back then. Rock Latex says the sellers in Calgary, maybe I do know who they are. Oh boy, maybe I do. I'll be at the show. I didn't even notice that, Rock Latex, until you said that. I did not even notice that. I got to check my history, see if I've ever done business with this person. And I will be at a Calgary show tomorrow. I'm going to ask around who this person is. And I will follow up with you guys if I find out who this is, because I don't know who it is right now. I didn't even realize they were I didn't even notice that.
Good detective work.
Yeah, Brett didn't even notice it either, and Brett's also in Calgary. So I'm going to look into who this might be, and then I'm going to say, hey, is this card legit? Like, did you grade this yourself? Like, what's the deal? Yeah, I'm not ripping on the seller at all, unless this is a fraudulent slab, unless they took it out and put in a fraudulent, like, unless they're doing something really mischievous here, I'm not ripping on the seller. It's got nothing to do with it. I mean, hey, they've got a card in a PSA 10 slab, and a lot of people don't really care about the card. They just want that PSA 10. I think in the long run they're gonna regret making a purchase like this. But this guy took it off the market anyway. But he did that after I said I was gonna rip on a card tonight, because I saw this card and I was like, this is just, it's just bad. So I don't know. Am I off? To the chat first, am I out of line here? Is this card in your mind gem mint? Am I missing something? I don't think I am, but am I being too critical of this card? What do you think? What else might be the situation, or what else could have happened to get this card into a PSA 10 slab? I don't know. Joe, do you have any thoughts on this?
I mean, I don't have, these kind of high-end cards like this, but I've got old PSA slabs where I look at it and I go, damn, that's a little different, than what you might expect from, say, like an 8 or a 7. It's not at this level, but I mean, I don't think you're off, but I also don't think it's entirely isolated to just this card.
Of course it isn't. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, this is just a specific case of a card that I personally am interested in, because, like I said, I own 2 of the 17 PSA 10s. I'm actually pretty happy that this card is so bad for the grade, because now I realize it's not the gem mint population is not truly 17. It's at most 16, because this is not a gem mint card. It just isn't, in my opinion. So I'm glad to know that the pop report is overstated by at least 1. Lou, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, just out the gate, you own 2, so this card, the ins and outs, right? Me, from just a collector, this is a fairly young card. It's 89, 90. A 10 should look like a 10. So my first thing was, did you run the number to see if there was a photo? You said you did. There's no photo because of the time it was graded. They didn't have that technology. I wouldn't buy that card on eBay. If I was in person and I felt comfortable with the slab, I would think it was tampered with, because, I mean, just out the gate, there was too many issues just from the eye. I mean, you can see top to bottom, a little bit left to right, the fisheye. I seen enough cards, the 84 Donnie Mattingly.
Mm-hmm.
I know what a fake looks like.
Mm-hmm.
The 86 Fleer, I know what a fake looks like. And when you were looking over it was interesting when you looked over the Topps logo, how faint it was.
Mm-hmm.
The registration was it was like a ghost, those ghost images, almost like a copy. I would think it was fake out the gate. That's why I'd be super interested to hold it in my hand to see that case. To me, the authenticity might be in question, especially you owning 2 of them, and how that card is inside and out. When I see logos like the R, like the little copyright, when it's faded, it seems like 85-90% of the time that is a fake card. I just, I know a lot of people put a lot of weight into the grade. Not all grades are created equal. A card from the 40s or 50s, when you see a 4, we know what a 4 is supposed to look like. A 10, we know what a 10 looks like. And this is a brand new, not brand new, but a modern card. A 10 should look like a 10. Sharp corners, crisp image, registration should be flawless. That has too many issues. Even in an old slab, that shouldn't be a 10.
Yeah. I think you're definitely right. And, as I scroll through their other listings, I don't know if you guys noticed, there's a lot of very, one of one distinguishable cards here. And I'm looking at these and do I know who this is? Because I would have some questions. And this was my old card. Actually, it's funny. This Howard Chuck was my old card. I sold this last year. So someone was buying. Now I didn't sell it myself, so I don't have access to who this buyer was, but I sold this card as well. And look at all these really nice high-end one of ones, a lot of President's Choice, which was the Brian Price, who owned In the Game. He went off to do President's Choice. A lot of those are his cards, but there's a lot of very like cards that if I see these somewhere, I'm gonna pick up right away and know. Like, look at these two patches. These were recently sold on eBay, and somebody bought them and is just putting them up at a higher price than they paid for them. Like,
Here's
this should be
thing.
pretty easy to find out who this is what I'm trying to get at here, right?
Well,
like, look at all these.
With this card, the second card, there's only 17 of them. You should be able to track that card. Like, what's the history of this card? How many times has it been sold? It seems like this guy buys cards and sells them. We could probably see the previous owner. Maybe there was a old listing somewhere in another auction to see if the card is the same or has it been changed, tampered with. There's only 17 of them. We should be able to track that card.
Well, if anybody watching bought any of these cards on eBay, these are the sold cards. Would love to find out who you bought these from, because look at this one. I mean, somebody I think recently flexed this card on Instagram. So if anyone knows who owns any of these cards that were recently sold, and listen, again, I don't have an issue with the seller until we have an issue with the seller, right? We don't know. Like, it's like we all have overgraded cards in our collections, right? If you've got a few dozen graded cards in your collection, you have some overgraded cards. That's just the nature of grading. So, and Lou, you were talking about this R. Like, look at the R there on this one. You can barely make it out, and then look at it on this one, like crystal clear, pretty much, right?
Like the 86 Fleer, the Donnie Baseball, 84. I mean, like I said, that to me just means it was copied. When you don't have that crisp, bold lines. I mean, that Topps, like the Topps itself on the nice Gem Mint 10 is just so distinct. And then you go to the Fugazi. I'm gonna call it the Fugazi 10. It's just blurry. That alone, I will stay away from that card.
Okay, so I know whose cards they are now. I found out because man,
they're in the chat.
Sent me a DM, and okay, so I looked, and now listen, this is crazy that it happened. This is crazy because I know this person.
So
he's a wonderful collector, an absolute gem of a collector, actually. I know this guy. There's no way this is funny business. This is simply, unless he bought a fraudulent card, this is an overgraded card. I'm like, 99% certain of that, because I know this guy. This guy is not classic. What's that?
This is a classic. Buy the card, not the grade. If the card doesn't suit your eye, don't buy it.
Yeah. So this seller bought this card, and I don't know what happened to it. I'm going to ask him, like, why did you take it off eBay? Because I didn't realize it was him. And I'm glad I didn't know that it was him, because I know this guy. He's a great guy. And I wouldn't have wanted to like not had this part of the show because I didn't want to hurt his feelings or something like that. So I'm glad I didn't realize it was in Calgary, or even look at sold items and try to look into it, because you got my authentic response. I didn't have the opportunity to even be like, oh, well, this is, as it says, Terry Fortune says right here, Charles Smith is the name in the description. Well, I know that guy, right? And I respect him, and I know that he's one of the nicest, seems like one of the most honest collectors out there. So the card, though, deserves the criticism it got. The seller is a great collector, and I didn't grow up with the guy, but I can 99% say with certainty that this guy is innocent. 100, like, I don't want to say 100 because again, I didn't grow up with him, but 99% sure. And so the card is just, it's like somebody said, it's the problem. One of the things, Foul Ball says proof you can't trust grading. Well, it's proof that grading is imperfect. It's inconsistent at the worst of times. It's imperfect, and it's proof that we as collectors need to use a keen eye and don't get romanced by the grade on the slab. Be romanced by the eye appeal of the card and how much you like the card. That's how you are going to avoid issues like this. And I can also tell you that this collector was new into the hobby. This guy used to reach out to me and ask for advice on cards. Like literally going back probably 3 years. I'd say this guy's been in the hobby for about 3 years is my guess. So this card was probably bought before they had the experience that they have now and would now not have bought this card is my guess. So, but nonetheless, PSA put it in a 10 holder. That's what's so important to so many people. So interesting situation, guys. Really interesting situation. Bob Boozle says, I do not think Jeremy is a meanie. He tried to help collectors. I appreciate that, Bob. I certainly do try to help collectors when I can. Dan says probably sold it locally, so took it down. Could easily be the case. Brendan says a colorblind grader may be a blessing in disguise. Dan, if you think I would give anyone advice to buy that card, you don't know me. And I know, Dan, there's absolutely no way that I would ever advise anyone to buy that card. Now, I would advise people to buy a PSA 10 or like a real gem mint 89 Topps card because it is just such a rare find for a junk wax card, right? It's like a super low pop in gem mint. It's a very, very tough card. Jamie says grading is a lot of times for authentication, not just yet the card condition, not just the card condition. I agree with that for sure. Game Time says we need to turn back the clock and go back to using only 4 grades. Good, very good, excellent, and mint. Dan, I hear you, Dan. No worries at all, buddy. No worries at all. Bob Boozle, congrats to Stevie Wonder, PSA Employee of the Month. Well, and this card was like, look at the serial number 23050. Like this is like from 19. I'm gonna guess this is from about 2010, 11 when this was graded, maybe 12. This is before they put any hologram on the label. So this is a really old slab. Like this is probably 15 years old or so right now, I think. Joe, any comments on all this?
No, not really. I mean, other than like, what would you grade it?
8.
Not I mean, maybe. I would be tougher. For me, registration and focus is like as important as centering. So it's missing both of those. Plus with the fish eyes, like corners and edges, sure. I would take the Beckett approach. If this is going to be like 9.5 corners and 9.5 edges, I would give it probably like a 7.5 for centering and surface because I consider registration to be part of the surface grade, not knowing if there's any scratches on it. Surface wise, to me, it's like, as soon as you go from an imperfect clarity, it's like PSA. As soon as you have a pinhole through that card, it's automatically a 1, right? That kind of thing. To me, as soon as a card isn't focused properly, the highest grade I would want it to get would be an 8, highest possible. But this also has centering issues. So to me, this is like a 7.
How bad is the centering? To me, the centering is not 10 centering, but it's centered. It's not like it's 60-40, 70, 75-25. It's centered.
Top to bottom? Bad. Are you sure?
Well, you're making it sound like it's an OC card. It's not really.
No. If it was OC, I would say OC, right? And now listen, OC is dependent by grade too, right? Like the OC changes as you come down the grading scale. Like a 7 OC. No, I don't think this is an OC.
Yeah. Now
maybe this is a PS. This isn't even a PSA 10 OC to me because of the registration and the.
At best, it's an 8 at best. The registration is the weakest thing. I mean,
at best,
yeah.
Game Time. It's not as centered as the other copy. If you look at this one, look at the top and look at the bottom, and then look at this one. I mean, am I missing something? Like this one isn't perfectly centered top to bottom either, but to me, it appears to be better centered than this one to me. And again, maybe I'm just wrong about that. Maybe I'm seeing the centering. To me, this one has better centering than this one does. That top border is just a lot narrower than the bottom border on this one. The bottom border is slightly narrower than the top. I'd call this one like 47.53, and I'd call this one more like 60-40, Lou, which is still within PSA 10 centering standards.
Which is what I was going to get to. I mean,
I know.
It's not dead eye, but it's still in the parameters. So if you're looking at parameters, corners are nice, no chipping, but the registration and the fisheye goes into the registration. I mean, the registration is like a 6.5, 7 in my eye. But overall, if you're looking at everything, just because you got to have a standard for grading, it's an 8 at best because the corners are sharp, the edges are nice, the centering isn't bad. But the registration just kills it. The lack of focus, the fisheye, and who knows how the back looks like. They take that if it's like, oh, okay. I was gonna
back
say,
isn't bad. Back. I mean, it's got it appears to have some tilt on the back. It's a little bit of clockwise tilt on the centering, but
no diamond cut to it.
Well, yeah, I refer to that as tilt, but. Yeah, diamond cut to what you mean for sure. I think there's 3 fisheyes. Someone pointed out one in the pink, maybe up there. But in any event, again, listen, 8. I'm with you, Lou. 8 at the most would be what I would grade it as. So just some thought. LGC says better centering than one of the Gretzky PSA 10s. Brendan Ryan pointed out a fisheye in the pink, which is actually a third one, Brendan, because there's one on the eye and Sakic as well. Dan says, how much is this card in a $700? Think how badly PSA has screwed up the economics of the hobby. I mean, yeah, this card is just way overvalued because of the slab it is in. Dan says it's a PSA 10 with a DK modifier, drunk grader. Yeah, good point.
I'd be more interested, honestly. I don't know how your relationship, Jeremy, is with the seller, but if he hasn't sold it locally, there's a couple of reasons why he took it off eBay. But I'd be interested in holding the slab. I love seeing cards in person. I mean, if I buy online, I do buy graded because I feel more protected, especially if just with the eBay authentication. But if you know this guy, if he's going to be at the Calgary show or Calgary show, I'll ask him.
I'm going to DM him. I'm going to say to him, first of all, check out my episode tonight. I absolutely, I kind of ragged. I hate your PSA 10 Sakic card, and I probably hurt you from selling it. To the extent that a potential buyer was watching or going to listen to this, but I'm okay with that personally. I'm sorry for his financial situation, but I'd rather do this than not do this. I'll put it to you that way, right? Just so I can be honest and authentic about how I feel about the card. But yeah, I'm gonna DM him and say, hey, check out the episode, and hey, let's have a look at the card in person, see if I feel any different about it that way. I don't think I'm gonna. I really don't think I'm gonna though. So, all right, guys, we are at 3.5 hours here on Saturday night. So we're in a Joe, any comments on that card? You've been waiting patiently again.
No, not at all. I mean, it's a good analysis. I like when you break things down and kind of look at the finer points, and you do that on the hockey Sunday nights and then the premier auction. So I enjoy that. And I did want to, before I forget, Lou, that 73 Topps Clemente has a special place in my heart too. His last card, his tragic passing, and I had that was like a mail order set for me when I was a kid. I ordered the whole 73 top set, and I got that 73 Topps. I think it's slabbed in a BVG 7.5, and it's one of my favorite cards because it has all his stats on it, and it's a beautiful image, and that is an awesome player to PC, I would say.
Yeah, very interesting image too to be his last.
Yeah,
shadowy. Most of his pictures are up close. But this one's like it's kind of I don't know. It's almost a little sad.
Yeah,
I mean, to be 30, to die at 38.
Yeah,
and you talk about the stats. It's he's the gatekeeper of the 3,000 hit club. He got that last hit. Right. He's the gatekeeper, and it's just I look at this and it's just such a sad photograph to me. Because knowing what happened to him, it's you could just I don't know how to explain it, but that's the beauty of collecting. You look at cards and they mean something different to everybody. And that card will always be with me. It's like I said, it's my casket card. And yeah, 73 means a lot to me because my grandfather's favorite baseball player was Orlando Cepeda. And that was the card he gave me, the only baseball card he's ever given me. I learned a lot from him when it comes to baseball. But when he retired, he's like, yeah, happy to have this card because he was my favorite baby bull, Orlando Cepeda. It was a 73 Topps Orlando Cepeda. So that's 73 set means a lot to me.
That's awesome, guys. I love it, Lou. Those connections are what bring extra meaning to what we're doing here tonight and every day that we're in this hobby. Dan here says, I added value to the card. It now has the backstory. Jeremy Lee slagged example. It has that for sure, Dan. I don't know if it adds value, but I appreciate the sentiment. Brendan Ryan says, doesn't it really boil down to being able to replicate a grading scale from person to person? And I think that's the biggest challenge that the PSAs of the world have, especially as they scale up their business and their grading staff to meet demand, is really making sure that that there is consistency, within a single grader, hour to hour, day to day, week to week, month to month, and then between graders, and then between teams, and then between offices. They expand. They're opening up an office in Toronto as they expand into other countries. I mean, how are they going to maintain consistency to the level and listen, they're grading millions of cards, over a million cards a month. How many of them are bad? How many of them are wrong, right? How many of them are they getting wrong? I do believe it's a small percentage. And by small, I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say they're probably getting 90% of the grades right. And 10% they're probably, would be different on, maybe I'm being too generous. Maybe it's 80, 70, maybe it's 50%. I don't know. But somewhere between 50 and 90, I would say, is when they would give the same grade every time between graders. It's not 100%. We just know it isn't. Otherwise, people wouldn't crack and resubmit. There'd be no point in that. And, so it's a tough situation. That's why it's just so important to look at the cards yourself, grade the grader. That's what we should all be doing. Or just assess the grade on the slab before you pay the money for that slab. And sometimes you're going to get a deal on a card like I've been doing lately because I'm buying undergraded cards. That's what I like to do. So, all right, let's wind this up, guys. Lou, thanks for coming on, buddy. Appreciate all your stories, your outlook, your just authentic collector aspect and approach to the hobby. Having your daughter on the channel with you. I played your channel for my daughter, and she just sat here like this, watching to look at you interact with her. She loved it. So that was great, man. Thanks for what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate the invite. Thank you so much. I love talking cards, so I can do this anytime, anywhere. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Joe, thanks as always for coming on and being here with me and adding your very rational thoughts to all these things. I appreciate you as always, man. Hope you had a good time tonight. So thank you. Any final comments?
No, just pleasure to meet Lou and the other guests, of course. And thanks for having me on.
All right, guys. LGC says, great show, boys. Thank you, LGC. Dan, appreciate that very much, sir. And Brendan Ryan, appreciate the live stream excellence. Had a great time tonight, guys. Thank you, everybody, for joining for this first episode of Sports Cards Live. I'm calling it 2.0 because it's different than it used to be here in 2025. Happy New Year, everybody. To everybody who is in LA, you have family, friends, you have fellow countrymen going through the very tragic situation there. Our hearts go out to everything that is just happening over there, and wish everybody safety. And hopefully you are able to salvage your cards if you are down there. I know it's not a top priority, but from the hobby perspective, hopefully you had time to save your collection if you did. And with that, thank you, Brett Miles. Appreciate that very much. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We are in year 5 of Sports Cards Live. Looking forward to this year here. We'll be doing this every Saturday night that I am not traveling to a card show or elsewhere. With that, everybody, and thank you to Joe, Lou Rock, and all the guests tonight. This episode of Sports Cards Live here on January 11th, 2025 is now over.